Chapter 1206. Staring hatefully at Chu Xiu in front of him, Blood River Ancestor had actually miscalculated this time. He really did not expect Chu Xiu to make a move. It should be said that from the beginning, he did not regard Chu Xiu as an opponent, but rather had scruples about the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Previously, Blood River Ancestor thought that since he had touched Chu Xiu's men, although Chu Xiu would be angry, he would definitely report it to the Imperial Sky Pavilion and put pressure on Blood River Religion. In fact, Blood River Religion was not afraid at all. In the previous martial arts gambling fight of High Heaven Sect, Blood River Religion had actually publicly stood on the side of Cold River City, so they naturally did not care about the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Anyway, they had Cold River City as their backing. Therefore, after Blood River Ancestor finished hunting down Lujiang River, he had no fear and went into seclusion there. However, he did not expect that Chu Xiu would travel thousands of miles to attack him openly. Was this guy crazy? Patriarch Blood River glared angrily at Chu Xiu as if he wanted to skin him alive. I've seen people who have a death wish, but this is the first time I've seen someone like you who has come to seek death. This time, even if your master is a Dao master or a Buddhist ancestor, I will still suck your blood dry, not to mention that your master is the descendant of Gu Zun. Apart from him, Blood River Religion only had a total of 3 heaven and earth profound beings. Yin Shueli had been crippled by Lujiang River, and Duan Lingkong had been killed by Chu Xiu, so there was only one deputy religion master left. Sects like Blood River Religion did not have a deep foundation, and now they had lost 2 heaven and earth profound beings. This could be said to be a serious blow to them. Chu Xiu said indifferently, seeking death. Many people have said this to me, but unfortunately, in the end, the person who died was him. Chu Xiu's people are not so easy to deal with. Attacking my people in the territory of Jianghu County, Blood River Ancestor, you are also seeking death. I heard that this mountain of yours was dyed red by you. You don't live up to your name. I wonder if you can dye it red with the blood of everyone in your Blood River Religion? As soon as Chu Xiu's voice fell, before Blood River Ancestor could react, Chu Xiu had already shouted, "Kill! The entire Blood River Religion will be exterminated, not even a chicken or a dog will be spared." The warriors of the sacred sect behind him immediately rushed out with murderous intent. The intensity of the murderous intent was even greater than when they destroyed the Sabodhi monastery. Since Chu Xiu said he would not leave, not even a chicken or a dog, Blood River Ancestor would not be spared. Patriarch Blood River bellowed furiously, and the blood river around him surged out. The blood river that was several hundred feet long surged behind him, and it was even more powerful and dazzling than the blood river condensed by Duan Lingkong. Although Chu Xiu's killing intent was boundless, his eyes were extremely calm as he observed Patriarch Blood River's true strength. He was a half-step martial immortal, but this so-called half-step only referred to the realm. Although it could affect one's combat power, it was not absolute. Regardless of whether it was the momentum or the power that Blood River Ancestor displayed, he was not as good as Xian Jialua. After all, one of them was a cultivator from an unorthodox background, while the other was a palace master of a top sect in the eastern region, Brahmin religion. He was also the future temple master of one of the 3 temples of Brahmin religion. The endless of Blood River directly shrouded Chu Xiu. In the of Blood River, there were countless ghosts and spirits howling, weakening the power of Chu Xiu's primordial spirit. Its power was far stronger than Duan Lingkong's. The primordial spirit behind Chu Xiu bloomed with golden light. This level of primordial spirit attack could no longer hurt him. Especially after cultivating Moriha's illusion, Chu Xiu's mental strength was also a notch higher. Without dodging or evading, Chu Xiu slashed down with his saber. The razor-sharp saber radiance seemed to be tearing the heavens and the earth apart, tearing the blood river apart. However, at the next moment, the river of blood that had been torn apart changed its shape again. It extended backwards and blocked Chu Xiu's saber attack. After being torn apart easily, it could still change its shape again. In the end, when Chu Xiu's saber light was several tens of feet away from Patriarch Blood River, its power was completely exhausted. Blood River Ancestor sneered and said, "Do you think I'm so easy to deal with? Do you know how many experts of the eastern region's blood has been condensed in this of Blood River? Don't worry, don't worry. You'll become one of them later." Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. He had really underestimated Blood River Ancestor. The cultivation technique that Blood River Ancestor had researched based on the incomplete Blood River sect manual was definitely not as perfect as the Blood Demon Divine technique that had been polished and improved by Dugu Weiwei. However, for him to refine his opponent's blood and fuse his power into the river of blood, turning it into an existence that was neither a cultivation technique nor a weapon, yet was able to fuse the characteristics of these two attributes, this was truly very rare. Seeing that the of Blood River was crashing towards him again, Chu Xiu formed a seal with his hands, and the two-sided Buddha Dharma idol appeared behind him. Mahavairokkana was burning with intense Buddha light, and the third eye of Mahakala spewed out endless apocalyptic fire. At this moment, Blood River Ancestor's disciple, In Shueli, saw this scene from the chaotic battle and hurriedly shouted, "Master, be careful. This Chu Xiu is also good at Buddhist cultivation techniques." "Bastard! Why didn't you say so earlier?" Blood River Ancestor's expression changed. He wanted to put away his of Blood River, but it was too late. The scorching true sun fire and the evil apocalyptic fire took turns roasting the of Blood River, instantly causing 1/10 of it to evaporate. Chu Xiu's strongest point was not his foundation of power, nor was it his realm, but his understanding of the martial Tao, which was the battle Tao that he had accumulated through life and death battles. His strength had been cultivated through life and death battles, so he was very sensitive to the various martial Tao's battle Tao. Therefore, after exchanging a few blows, he could already tell that Blood River Ancestor's cultivation technique seemed frightening, but it had too many flaws. It was a standard, evil, and strange demonic Tao cultivation technique that was lacking in grandeur. It was very easily restrained by Buddhist cultivation techniques. The remaining of the of Blood River was integrated into Blood River Ancestor's body. The next moment, the blood qi around him surged into the sky, and a sharp blade appeared on each of his fingers. The blood qi behind him condensed into tentacles that wrapped around Chu Xiu. The formation breaker slashed out continuously, tearing apart the tentacles condensed from the blood qi. However, Blood River Ancestor had already gotten close to Chu Xiu. The powerful sharp blade condensed from the power of qi and blood slashed wildly at Chu Xiu, causing the air to be filled with blood-colored claw marks. However, in front of Chu Xiu's broken formation, even supreme-grade divine weapons were not as sharp and powerful as the broken formation, which was a divine weapon born from the world. Therefore, Patriarch Blood River was still unable to injure Chu Xiu. However, at that moment, Blood River Ancestor's domain spread out, and the boundless blood-colored domain directly enveloped Chu Xiu's entire body. It crazily pulled out the qi and blood in his body, as if it wanted to forcibly pull them out of his body. Chu Xiu's body moved, and his own domain also spread out. The misty domain collided with the blood-red domain, and in an instant, a power fluctuation that could affect the laws of the world erupted, causing the entire Blood River sect to be covered in dark clouds and howling winds. Clashing with domains was actually a very irrational thing to do, but at that moment, Blood River Ancestor sneered and said, "Brat, just wait to be dried up." Although clashing with domains would consume a lot of energy for both sides, Blood River Ancestor was a half-step martial immortal, after all. He would not be at a disadvantage in a clash of domains. However, at the next moment, a change suddenly occurred in Chu Xiu's divine domain that was strangling the qi and blood. The reversed yin and yang powers of the 5 elements began to reorganize and change. Within the domain, Buddhist light instantly shone around Chu Xiu. He closed his eyes slightly and formed a Buddhist seal with his hands, as if a benevolent Buddha had descended. At the same time, the entire domain instantly ignited with endless scorching Buddhist flames, evaporating the qi and blood in his opponent's domain. Double domain. Blood River ancestors' expression suddenly changed. Most cultivators, or rather, 99% of them, only had one domain. There were also a small number of cultivators who could condense 2 or 3 domains. Although having more domains did not necessarily mean that one was strong, having more domains meant that the other party's martial path had more changes. Chu Xiu said lightly, double domain? As long as I want it, I can have 10,000 domains. Chu Xiu did not have 2 domains. He only had one domain, and within his domain, he was a godlike existence. The 5 elements, yin and yang, and the laws of the world would be reversed in Chu Xiu's domain, and it could strangle all kinds of power. Similarly, as long as Chu Xiu wanted it, he could also rearrange the yin and yang powers of the 5 elements at will, transforming them into any power he wanted. Of course, he had already mastered this power, just like the scorching Buddhist flames in his domain. No matter what kind of power changed, in the end, it would condense into Chu Xiu's domain. The scorching Buddhist flames restrained Blood River Ancestor's domain. However, Blood River Ancestor was, after all, a half-step martial immortal. His realm and power were still stronger than Chu Xiu's. Therefore, he did not retreat. Instead, he mobilized more power and used the power of his domain to suppress Chu Xiu. Although most experts in the mysterious enlightenment realm would not use their domains in a battle of domains, he was clearly a half-step martial immortal. His realm was far higher than Chu Xiu's. Why couldn't he use this power to suppress Chu Xiu? However, at this time, a strange look appeared in Chu Xiu's eyes. He said, "Blood River Ancestor, look below. If this continues, your Blood River Church will be killed by me." Blood River Ancestor could not help but look around. The result made him feel unsteady and he almost vomited blood. Here, he was evenly matched with Chu Xiu. Although it was difficult, he was not defeated. At this time, the Blood River Church was completely defeated. Shang Tianliang had already attacked another deputy head of the Blood River Church until he vomited blood. As for the others, it was simply a massacre. Mei Qinglian, Lu Fengxian, Chu Wuji and the others could be said to have attacked with all their strength. Even Lu Fengxian, who had the best character, did not hold back at all. Although Lu Jianghu had a foul mouth, after experiencing so many disasters and burdens together, they had long regarded Lu Jianghu as one of their own. Now, seeing that Lu Jianghu was seriously injured by Blood River Ancestor, Chu Xiu was angry, and so were they. The power of the attack with hatred could be said to be extremely powerful. Chapter 1207. The Blood River sect was the foundation of Patriarch Blood River's life. In fact, Patriarch Blood River was very ambitious. With Patriarch Blood River's strength, as long as he was prepared to join a top sect, he would definitely be able to exchange for the position of the head guest. However, Patriarch Blood River was unwilling to submit to someone else. He would rather guard his Blood River sect alone and slowly develop it than submit to someone else. In the end, the Blood River sect that he had spent hundreds of years building had been destroyed in Chu Xiu's hands. This made Patriarch Blood River extremely furious, and he could no longer care about wasting time with Chu Xiu. The domain suddenly expanded, and a powerful force erupted. Blood-colored light shot into the sky. The boundless blood-colored light enveloped Chu Xiu, constantly compressing his domain. There was even a hint of power in the blood-colored light that eroded the power of Chu Xiu's essence, soul and blood qi. Patriarch Blood River gritted his teeth and pushed the power of the blood-colored light to the limit. Specks of blood mist even appeared around him and fused with the blood-colored light. Warriors who cultivated the qi and blood qi cultivation method paid the most attention to their own qi and blood. Their qi and blood were equivalent to their strength. Now that Patriarch Blood River had fused his own strength into it, it was clear that he was giving it his all. He was prepared to quickly defeat Chu Xiu and rescue the other warriors of the Blood River sect. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes, and a mysterious look flashed through them. Patriarch Blood River's heart was in a mess. When the blood-colored light compressed Chu Xiu's domain to less than 10 feet around him, Patriarch Blood River suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood-colored light shone even brighter, instantly compressing the domain to less than 3 feet away from Chu Xiu. In the next moment, Chu Xiu suddenly gave up on the domain. The violent demonic aura around him swept out, devouring the power around him in a frenzy, including the powerful blood-red light created by Patriarch Blood River. Chu Xiu's body began to grow crazily. In the end, he grew to a height of thousands of zhang, completely shattering Patriarch Blood River's blood light. With a punch, Chu Xiu directly smashed Patriarch Blood River into the cliff. The power of the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth dissipated rapidly. Chu Xiu had only used the power of a single punch this time. Therefore, he wasn't completely drained and could still hold on. However, the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth did not kill Patriarch Blood River. Patriarch Blood River coughed up blood as he struggled to climb out of the cliff. He was covered in blood and looked extremely wretched. Divine ability. How could it be a divine ability? Patriarch Blood River was in disbelief. At Patriarch Blood River's realm, he naturally knew about the existence of divine abilities. Moreover, he himself was very eager to obtain a divine ability. Of course, the probability of obtaining one was very small. Patriarch Blood River was born in the wilderness. He did not join those top sects, nor did he have many fortuitous encounters. Therefore, things like divine abilities could only be encountered by Patriarch Blood River. But now, he had seen a divine ability from Chu Xiu, a junior martial artist whose realm was far below his. This made him feel indignant and unfair. Seeing that a large number of warriors from Blood River sect had been slaughtered, Patriarch Blood River gritted his teeth and shouted, "Chu Xiu! Why are you attacking my Blood River sect? Is the Imperial Sky Pavilion going to completely fall out with Cold River City? If you stop now, I promise you that my Blood River sect will remain neutral and will never stand on Cold River City's side." In the beginning, Patriarch Blood River attacked with hidden anger. He did not ask Chu Xiu this question at all. It should be said that from the beginning, he did not believe that Chu Xiu would come to kill him with all his strength just because he was chasing after one of his subordinates. Thinking of the general situation of the entire East region, the relationship between Chu Xiu and the Imperial Sky Pavilion, and the relationship between the Imperial Sky Pavilion and Cold River City, Chu Xiu's arrival today was most likely to help the Imperial Sky Pavilion get rid of him in advance. Chu Xiu shook his head indifferently and said, "Patriarch Blood River, it's actually a little sad for people to live like you. Even if you die, you won't know how you died. From the moment I came up the mountain, I said that Chu Xiu's people are not so easy to deal with." Patriarch Blood River's eyes widened as if he could not believe that Chu Xiu was really going to attack him for such a slightly ridiculous reason. Seeing that the people of the Blood River sect were about to be killed by Chu Xiu, Patriarch Blood River roared angrily. The qi and blood around him dispersed in an instant. His whole body merged into the void and turned into an extremely terrifying existence. Without a physical body, his whole body seemed to be melted blood, with a dirty color. "Junior. Today, I will not rest until you die." Chu Xiu looked at Patriarch Blood River in surprise. As expected, there was no one in this realm who was easy to deal with. This Patriarch Blood River had actually refined all the qi and blood in his body and then merged it into his own body. Such an existence could not even be considered a human. Blood demon? In an instant, the endless river of tainted blood enveloped Chu Xiu. The power corroded and polluted everything. Everywhere it passed, even the energy of the world began to be corroded at a frenzied rate, giving off a charred smell. Patriarch Blood River's eyes were filled with joy. Chu Xiu had destroyed the Blood River sect that he had spent his entire life working on. He wanted Chu Xiu to stay here and be buried with the Blood River sect. However, at this time, Patriarch Blood River found that there was not the slightest trace of fear in Chu Xiu's eyes. Instead, there was a playful expression on his face. Before Patriarch Blood River could react, Chu Xiu had already formed a seal with his hands. Within the seal, a brilliant Buddhist light bloomed. It was magnificent, dazzling, and extremely holy. A cross-shaped lotus bloomed in the middle of Chu Xiu's hand seal. The lotus was large and clean, untainted by mud. The great redemption of the cross cleansed the world. The resplendent cross-shaped lotus bloomed, and wherever it passed, the Buddhist light shone for eternity, purifying all evil and filth. Under the illumination of the Buddhist light, the tainted blood that Blood River Patriarch had refined emitted white smoke and evaporated at a crazy rate. No! Patriarch Blood River roared angrily, but his eyes were filled with endless fear. He could not resist that power because it was a divine power, another divine power. Patriarch Blood River used all his strength to break free from the shackles of this power, but the next moment, the cross-shaped lotus bloomed, and endless light enveloped the entire Blood River sect. Patriarch Blood River's shrill cries gradually became softer in the endless light, and finally dissipated. Chu Xiu grabbed the air, and a stream of fresh blood appeared in his hand. The fresh blood was extremely pure, like a crystal, and like a living thing, it kept churning in Chu Xiu's hand. Chu Xiu glanced at it, then threw it into his secret space box. This was Patriarch Blood River's soul blood, where his true spirit was stored. Patriarch Blood River could refine all the blood in his body into a filthy state, but only the soul blood in his true soul had to be kept extremely pure. This thing had a certain benefit after refining, but Chu Xiu did not plan to use it himself. Since he had promised to bring Patriarch Blood River's blood back to Jianghu, he would definitely do it. Although all the blood in Patriarch Blood River's body had been purified, this small ball of extremely pure soul blood was more useful than the dirty blood in his body. Mei Qinglian walked over and looked at Chu Xiu in surprise. "Are you okay?" Chu Xiu asked curiously, "What's wrong with me? Every time you use a divine power, you look like you've been sucked dry. Why are you fine this time?" Mei Qinglian looked at Chu Xiu strangely, and Chu Xiu looked uncomfortable. "Who's been sucked dry? I'm just overexerting myself." Chu Xiu thought about it and said, "The cross-shaped lotus seal is different from my other divine powers. It can't be said to be weak, but it can't be said to be strong either. This divine power is an inherent divine power of the Buddhist sect. When facing all kinds of evil and strange powers, the cross-shaped lotus seal's power can be maximized. However, when facing other powers that lean towards the yang attribute, the power of the cross-shaped lotus seal is very ordinary." Chu Xiu was very satisfied with the cross-shaped lotus seal that he had comprehended under the Subhuti treasure tree. Although the effects were limited, the consumption was much less than the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. It was completely within the range that Chu Xiu could bear. After destroying the Blood River sect, Chu Xiu counted the losses. In fact, he had not lost many people. It had to be said that the Blood River sect's warriors were still weak. When the Blood River Patriarch was imparting martial arts to these disciples, he seemed to have held back. Most of the Blood River sect's warriors only knew how to absorb blood to cultivate evil techniques, but they did not inherit the Blood River Patriarch's strange martial arts. Right now, the entire Blood River sect was covered in rivers of blood. It had become the Blood River sect in name only. Chu Xiu waved his hand and said, "Let's go to the Imperial Sky Pavilion." Mei Qinglian asked in surprise, "Why are we going to the Imperial Sky Pavilion?" Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you really think that we can sit back and relax after destroying the Blood River sect? Cold River City will not let this go. No matter what, we have to get the Imperial Sky Pavilion to help us share the risk." When Chu Xiu said this, Mei Qinglian understood. Share the risk? He was obviously looking for someone to take the blame. When she heard this, Mei Qinglian could not help but mourn for the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Being Chu Xiu's superior was a high-risk job. Li Wuxiang had already been cursed to death by Chu Xiu. Who knew how long autumn water could last? Although Li Wuxiang's death was not related to Chu Xiu, the halo that Chu Xiu had of cursing his superior was still very strong. Before Chu Xiu had returned to the Imperial Sky Pavilion, the news of the Blood River sect being destroyed had spread throughout the eastern region. It instantly caused a huge uproar. The Blood River sect was not considered weak in the eastern region. The Blood River Patriarch was even thought to be the most promising existence among the rogue cultivators to step into the martial immortal realm. But now, this hope was killed by someone. That person's name was Chu Xiu. In his hands, the Blood River sect was truly covered in rivers of blood. It became the Blood River sect in name only. Chapter 1208. The destruction of the Blood River cult caused a great shock to the Jianghu of the East region. In fact, Chu Xiu had always been very famous in the Jianghu of the East region. As the successor of Gu Zun and having defeated Xianyuan Wushuang and Yuan Fu in succession, Chu Xiu had long entered the eyes of the experts in the East region. However, that was only his personal fame. Now, Chu Xiu had destroyed the Blood River cult with his subordinates. The destruction of the Blood River cult, which was second only to the top sects in the East region, was a great shock to the entire Jianghu of the East region. When Chu Xiu arrived at the Imperial Sky Pavilion, Lu Sanjin personally came out to greet Chu Xiu. However, after seeing Chu Xiu, Lu Sanjin's expression was a little strange. "Brother Chu, did you really destroy the Blood River cult?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "This matter has been spread all over the East region. How can it be fake?" Lu Sanjin opened his mouth, but he didn't know what to say. In fact, Ancestor Blood River was not liked in the East region. Ancestor Blood River was evil and strange, and the cultivation method of the Blood River cult needed to absorb the blood of warriors to cultivate, so it was destined that the people of the Blood River cult would not do things with good intentions. However, Ancestor Blood River was very smart. He usually did not attack the big sects and only attacked some rogue cultivators. Although Ancestor Blood River had once aroused public anger and even attracted many rogue cultivators to attack the Blood River cult, in the end, they either returned without success or became nourishment for Ancestor Blood River. In addition, later, Ancestor Blood River turned to Cold River City and had a strong backer, so no one dared to cause trouble for Ancestor Blood River. As a result, now that Ancestor Blood River had died in the hands of Chu Xiu and the entire Blood River cult was destroyed because Ancestor Blood River had attacked Chu Xiu's subordinate. No matter how one thought about it, it felt a little strange. The Pavilion Master is waiting for you inside. Now the Pavilion Master is a little emotional, so be careful. Chu Xiu nodded and walked straight into the inner hall. At this time, in the inner hall, Zhong Qiushui did not look angry. She just looked at Chu Xiu helplessly. Yes, helplessness. At this moment, he somewhat understood Li Wuxiang's difficulties. If he wasn't the Pavilion Master and Chu Xiu killed Patriarch Blood River, he would definitely clap his hands and cheer. Killing Patriarch Blood River, who was a lackey of Cold River City, would boost the reputation of the Imperial Heaven Pavilion. No matter how one looked at it, it should be a good thing. However, now that he was the Pavilion Master, he also experienced how difficult it was to control a major sect like the Imperial Sky Pavilion in the Eastern region. He had just had a head-on fight with Cold River City. Although Cold River City didn't attack him because of his crazy and fearless look, but Cold River City was still eyeing him covetously. In the end, Chu Xiu destroyed the Blood River sect, which was equivalent to cutting off one of Cold River City's arms. Under such circumstances, with Yi Weikong's character, he would definitely not swallow his anger. However, Zhong Qiushui was not Li Wuxiang, after all. His character was radical and strong, so he didn't blame Chu Xiu. He just sighed and said, "Tell me, what are you thinking? You killed Patriarch Blood River and destroyed the Blood River sect. I believe with your character, you must be prepared." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "I'm not really prepared. I just have some ideas to tell you, Pavilion Master." "What ideas?" Chu Xiu's eyes were dark, and he said in a deep voice, is the Imperial Heaven Pavilion ready to fight to the death with Cold River City? Zhong Qiushui's expression suddenly changed, but then he sighed and shook his head. He said, ready? Even if we fight to the death, we can't win. What else do we need to prepare? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, are you ready to wait for death if you can't win? This time, Cold River City will definitely go all out. Zhong Qiushui said angrily, you destroyed the Blood River sect and cut off one of Cold River City's arms. It would be strange if Cold River City didn't make a move. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, Pavilion Master, you're wrong. I killed Patriarch Blood River. Although it will prompt Cold River City to make a move in advance, even if I don't touch Blood River sect, they will make a move soon. I believe Pavilion Master knows Yi Weikong's character better than I do. His ambition can't be satisfied by the current size of Cold River City. Although Yi Weikong is not too old, he is not too young either. As his successor, Qi Wuhan is far inferior to Yi Weikong. Therefore, if I were Yi Weikong, would destroy the Imperial Heaven Pavilion with all my strength before my strength starts to decline and divide the East Territory with High Heaven Sect. This time, Cold River City will not hold back. I wonder if the Imperial Heaven Pavilion can withstand it. Zhong Qiushui was silent. He definitely had more dealings with Cold River City than Chu Xiu did. What Chu Xiu could see, he could also see. It was just that he was unwilling to face this kind of thing. Tell me, what do you have in mind? Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, there is only one way, and that is to cut off our flesh to feed the tiger, and then drive the tiger to devour the wolf. Zhong Qiushui frowned immediately, who is the tiger and who is the wolf? High Heaven Sect is the tiger, and Cold River City is the wolf. Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, as long as Pavilion Master is willing to cut off your flesh and give up a part of the Imperial Heaven Pavilion's interests to High Heaven Sect, I believe High Heaven Sect will be willing to make a move. High Heaven Sect is the #1 sect in the East Territory. They definitely don't want to see a hungry wolf rise and challenge their position. Zhong Qiushui frowned deeply, and said in a deep voice, but doing so is equivalent to drinking poison to quench thirst, fattening High Heaven Sect. When they devour our Imperial Heaven Pavilion, won't the result be the same? Don't forget, our Imperial Heaven Pavilion has a great enmity with High Heaven Sect for more than 10,000 years. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, people who are dying of thirst, what else can't they drink? Even if it's drinking poison to quench thirst, at least drink it now, and Imperial Heaven Pavilion will have time to develop. If we don't drink it, we won't even have that little bit of time. So, as long as Pavilion Master is willing to cut off your flesh, I will talk to High Heaven Sect. How much do I need? Zhong Qiushui thought for a long time, and then asked hesitantly. Chu Xiu stretched out a finger and said, a county. Zhong Qiushui was taken aback, but before he could speak, Chu Xiu said, Pavilion Master, you know the strength of High Heaven Sect. If we don't pay such a big price, High Heaven Sect will think that we are sowing discord between them and Cold River City, and they won't act easily. Zhong Qiushui was much more decisive than Li Wuxiang. Perhaps Imperial Heaven Pavilion was really forced to the point where they had no other choice. Apart from Chu Xiu's method, Zhong Qiushui really couldn't think of any other way. Cutting off his flesh was better than fighting to the death with Cold River City. Moreover, it was indeed better for Chu Xiu to talk about this matter than him. High Heaven Sect and Imperial Heaven Pavilion had been fighting since the lower realm 10,000 years ago, all the way to the Daoist continent. Now, Zhong Qiushui really couldn't bring himself to lower his head to High Heaven Sect and cut off his flesh to ask them to help him. Although Chu Xiu was nominally a member of Imperial Heaven Pavilion, he was Gu Zun's successor after all. He could stand in the perspective of an outsider and talk about this kind of thing, so it wasn't so embarrassing. After receiving Zhong Qiushui's promise, Chu Xiu went straight to High Heaven Sect. In a reception hall of High Heaven Sect, Sect Master Fang Yinglong, Qin Baiyuan, and the three martial Immortal realm powerhouses of Linghu Immortal Mountain were all present. Originally, with Chu Xiu's face, he was not worthy of the three martial immortals coming out to greet him together. However, due to the fact that Chu Xiu had just annihilated the Blood River Church and his influence in the eastern region's pugilistic world, and that he had said that he wanted to discuss important matters regarding the entire eastern region with them, the three martial immortals had come together. Seeing Chu Xiu at this time, Qin Baiyuan was still a little unhappy with him. Snorting lightly, Qin Baiyuan said, "Boy, what important things do you want to tell us? Don't think that you are the number one figure in the Eastern Territory martial world just because you destroyed Blood River Cult. With the scale of Blood River Cult, my High Heaven sect can destroy it with a wave of our hand. If you don't give me a reason today, it won't be so easy to leave my High Heaven sect." Chu Xiu didn't care about Qin Baiyuan's attitude. His words were earth-shattering and shocked all three of them. "My Imperial Heaven Pavilion is willing to exchange a county's land for High Heaven sect's help to curb the expansion of Cold River City." Qin Baiyuan said with a look of disbelief, "What did you say? A county's land? Does Zhong Qiushui know what you said?" Chu Xiu took out the token Zhong Qiushui gave him and said, "This is the secret order of the Imperial Heaven Pavilion's Pavilion Master. It is enough to represent the Pavilion Master's intention." Qin Baiyuan and the other two looked at each other with disbelief in their eyes. The Imperial Sky Pavilion had really gone all out this time. That was the land of a county. It represented a county's resources, a county's talents, and a county's influence in the martial arts world. The price was enough to tempt them. However, this was a major event of the entire Eastern Domain. Qin Baiyuan and the others wouldn't agree so easily. Moreover, they wanted more benefits. Qin Baiyuan narrowed his eyes and said, "Drive the tiger to swallow the wolf? You want my High Heaven sect to save your Imperial Heaven Pavilion from its crisis with just a county's land? Not bad. However, have you forgotten the hatred between our two sects that has lasted for over 10,000 years? Chu Xiu said indifferently, "Old sect Master Qin, there's no need to probe anymore. A county's land is the Imperial Heaven Pavilion's bottom line. If your High Heaven sect doesn't help, you'll bear the consequences yourself." Qin Baiyuan was so angry that he laughed. "What? If my High Heaven sect doesn't help you, will you attack my High Heaven sect instead?" Chu Xiu said in a deep voice, "I won't, but Cold River City will. If High Heaven sect doesn't help, the Imperial Heaven Pavilion can't stop Yi Weikong, a 7th-layer martial immortal. Since they can't stop him, they might as well surrender. Yi Weikong's strength is already at the 6th-layer martial immortal. It won't be difficult for him to reach the 7th layer if he goes all out. If my Imperial Heaven Pavilion chooses to surrender, with the Imperial Heaven Pavilion's secret techniques, we can fully support Yi Weikong and push his strength to the 8th-layer martial immortal. At that time, there will be 2 8th-layer martial immortal experts in the Eastern Domain. I wonder, will your High Heaven sect be able to sit still?" Hearing this, even Fang Yinglong, who had been incomparably calm, revealed a cold glint in his eyes. "You dare?" Qin Baiyuan shouted. Chu Xiu retorted, "I don't dare, but the Imperial Heaven Pavilion dares. You're about to be exterminated. What else do you dare not do? Groveling and surrendering is better than having your inheritance destroyed, isn't it?" Chapter 1209. In the face of Chu Xiu's tit-for-tat, High Heaven sect compromised and chose to agree to Chu Xiu's conditions. Although Qin Baiyuan and the others didn't believe that the Imperial Sky Pavilion, a great sect with tens of thousands of years of history, would choose to surrender to Cold River City, they couldn't afford to gamble. If the Imperial Sky Pavilion was serious, they would be dumbfounded. Qin Baiyuan said in a deep voice, "How do you want my High Heaven sect to help you? Don't even think about helping you destroy Cold River City. I can only guarantee that the Imperial Sky Pavilion won't be destroyed by Cold River City." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That's enough. Actually, I only need High Heaven sect to help us once and heavily injure Cold River City. Everyone from High Heaven sect, especially Pavilion Master, you only need to lie in ambush in the southern barbaric land and attack at the critical moment. Qin Baiyuan asked in confusion, why lie in ambush in the southern barbaric land? If Cold River City wants to attack the Imperial Sky Pavilion, will they give up their headquarters and attack your tiny Jianghu county? Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said, why not? Cold River City didn't fight to the death with the Imperial Sky Pavilion before because they were afraid of the trump cards in the Imperial Sky Pavilion's headquarters. Now, if Cold River City decides to destroy the Imperial Sky Pavilion, they definitely won't fight to the death with the Imperial Sky Pavilion so easily. Instead, they'll cut off all the Imperial Sky Pavilion's wings first. Among all of the Imperial Sky Pavilion's affiliated forces, I'm the most powerful one. Moreover, I've just annihilated the Blood River sect. Yi Weikong must hate me to the core. It's only normal for him to attack me first. Hearing Chu Xiu's words, Qin Baiyuan looked at Chu Xiu with a strange gaze. To be remembered by a martial immortal level expert was not a good thing. However, at the same time, to be hated by a martial immortal level expert to such an extent, Chu Xiu could be said to be quite capable. After reaching an agreement with High Heaven Sect, Chu Xiu did not delay and immediately returned to Imperial Sky Pavilion to inform Zhong Qiushui to prepare to defend against the enemy in the southern barbaric land. Although Zhong Qiushui had some doubts about Yi Weikong attacking Jianghu County first, since Chu Xiu had negotiated with High Heaven Sect, he could only comply. In fact, Chu Xiu was almost 100% sure about this matter. Because Yi Weikong was a shameless person. To the weak, it was a derogatory term, but to the strong, it was terrifying. When such a powerful martial immortal level expert became so shameless, apart from absolute strength, what else could one possibly use to take care of him? Specifically targeting a junior martial art practitioner like Chu Xiu was the kind of thing that was hard to hear. However, it was precisely because Yi Weikong was shameless that he did not care about his so-called reputation. Killing Chu Xiu first would definitely be a great blow to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Just as Chu Xiu was making arrangements, Cold River City was also mobilizing, and all the elites were gathered in Lingluo County. Chu Xiu's guess was very accurate. Yi Weikong was indeed going to deal with him first. For Cold River City, Blood River Church was just an obedient mad dog that bit people. In the past, if Blood River Ancestor had not been tactful and decisively admitted defeat after provoking Cold River City, there would be no Blood River Church now. No matter how mad a dog was, in the face of Yi Weikong, it would only end up as stew. However, even if Blood River Church was just a dog raised by Cold River City, it was still Yi Weikong's dog. Moreover, it was very obedient. Now that it was killed, if he, as its master, swallowed the insult, would there still be a place for him in the eastern region? Therefore, Chu Xiu must be killed. Even if his master, Gu Zun, came, it would be useless. At the top of the city wall at the border of Lingluo County, Yi Weikong was wearing a white brocade robe, but he was wearing a silver-white armor on the outside. The armor was shining with bright starlight, and there were even traces left by sabers and swords. He had not worn this armor for a long time because it was left to him by Meng Xinghe. It was also made for him by Meng Xinghe when he and Meng Xinghe worked together to establish Cold River City. There was nothing that Xinghe Lu's cultivator did not know. They knew astrology, and they also knew how to forge weapons. Touching the scars on the armor, a trace of reminiscence flashed in Yi Weikong's eyes. In the past, he wore this armor and followed Meng Xinghe to roam the eastern region. They fought their way to a powerful foundation that was comparable to High Heaven Sect and Imperial Sky Pavilion. But now, he was the only one left. He once wanted Meng Xinghe to stay in Cold River City and even asked him to be the city lord, but Meng Xinghe refused without hesitation. Everyone had their own destiny. Meng Xinghe was the successor of Gu Zun. In the future, he would also become a Gu Zun and live in seclusion in the mountains to pass on his bloodline. Only in this way could he live up to the teachings of his ancestral master. Yi Weikong understood Meng Xinghe. Therefore, even if he was very reluctant, he had to personally send his good friend away. Looking in the direction of Jianghu County, Yi Weikong murmured, "Little Meng, I once told you that I want Cold River City to dominate the eastern region and pass on for millions of years. I don't have much time left. This time, let me take the last step." Yi Weikong turned his head and looked at the busy martial artists of Cold River City who were gathering. A cold light could not help but flash in his eyes. No force could last forever. The Imperial Sky Pavilion had enjoyed the legacy of their ancestors for tens of thousands of years. Now, it was time to come to an end. In Jianghu County, Chu Xiu was also arranging for people to withdraw from Nan'an Prefecture. Nan'an Prefecture, the previously abandoned prefecture, was connected to the southern land of barbarism. Therefore, Chu Xiu attached great importance to it. Many people were stationed there, and many of them were elites that he had brought from the mortal world. He had spent a lot of effort to cultivate these people. He didn't want them to die here. After Chu Xiu withdrew from Nan'an Prefecture with his people, Yi Weikong immediately began to cross the border with Cold River City and directly advanced to the prefectural governor's mansion. Along the way, Cold River City didn't encounter any decent resistance. It should be said that there was no resistance at all. It was as if the Imperial Sky Pavilion had given up on this place. Qi Wuhan frowned and said, "City Lord, could it be that Chu Xiu already expected that we would attack Jianghu County first, so he withdrew in advance and prepared to ambush us?" Yi Weikong said indifferently, "Ambush? So what? Wuhan, sometimes, there's no need to consider so much when doing things. Use your fist first, then use your brain. In the face of absolute strength, everything else is illusory. If there's no ambush, we will directly annihilate Jianghu County and then go to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. If he really called Zhong Qiushui and the others over and set up an ambush in Jianghu County, that's perfect. We can directly annihilate all of them in Jianghu County. No matter how strong the ambush is, it can't be more powerful than the Imperial Sky Pavilion's 10,000 years old formation, can it?" Qi Wuhan nodded in understanding. If Chu Xiu really prepared an ambush, it would instead help them achieve their goal. When the entire Cold River City was directly pushed to the foot of Nan's mansion, Chu Xiu finally stood on top of the city wall and revealed himself. He looked down at the Cold River City's martial art practitioners and sighed emotionally. The rise of Cold River City wasn't without reason. Just by looking at the Cold River City's martial art practitioners below, one could see that each and every one of them was extremely sharp and their eyes were shining with a strong fighting spirit. Chu Xiu had been to both the Imperial Sky Pavilion and the High Heaven Sect. In the eyes of the High Heaven Sect's martial art practitioners, most of them were arrogant and conceited. They looked at everyone as if they were looking at a bumpkin. It was as if in their eyes, there were only two sects in the entire Eastern Domain, one was the High Heaven Sect, and the other was another sect. As for the Imperial Sky Pavilion, most of the Imperial Sky Pavilion's martial art practitioners actually displayed an indifferent attitude, muddling through life and appearing lethargic. Yi Weikong raised his head to look at Chu Xiu and said indifferently, "You guessed that I would come?" Chu Xiu said, "Of course I guessed. I've killed so many people from your Cold River City. If City Lord you could let me go so easily, then you wouldn't be Yi Weikong. Even the monks of Tian Luo Bao sect aren't as merciful as you." Yi Weikong laughed heartily and said, "Chu Xiu, to be honest, I actually admire you very much. I'm not being polite, I'm telling the truth. You do things decisively and without hesitation. You kill when you need to kill and beat when you need to. You're very similar to the way I acted when I was young. But it's a pity that you made the wrong choice. Back then, Little Meng and I were able to build a Cold River City that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the great sects that had existed for 10,000 years. But you followed the Imperial Sky Pavilion and could only fall with them. Don't hide anymore. Call out all the people from the Imperial Sky Pavilion." Chu Xiu could guess that Yi Weikong would come to find trouble with him. Naturally, Yi Weikong could also guess that if Chu Xiu hadn't left, then there would definitely be an ambush in Jianghu County. Therefore, Chu Xiu didn't ask Zhong Qiushui and the others to set up any traps or anything like that. The formations and traps that were set up in a hurry were useless. Zhong Qiushui and a group of cultivators from the Imperial Sky Pavilion appeared on the city walls. He said coldly, "Yi Weikong, aren't you a little too confident, you old fart? Do you really think that the Imperial Sky Pavilion's 10,000 years of heritage and foundation are made of clay?" Yi Weikong didn't get angry. He only said indifferently, "Zhong Qiushui, I admire you very much. If you were in my Cold River City, you would definitely be a top-notch general. But unfortunately, the previous pavilion master didn't put you in an important position, and the current pavilion master is starting to suppress you. How much of your strength can you unleash? Even if you become the pavilion master now, it's useless. The decline of the Imperial Sky Pavilion isn't something that you can turn around by yourself. So what if you have 10,000 years of heritage and foundation? Nothing in this world is eternal. Even the world will be destroyed, let alone a small sect like yours. So what if it was a scheme? So what if it was an ambush? Everything was actually under Yi Weikong's control. He had already made up his mind. This time, it was also the last time he would go all out. He would cut the Gordian knot and destroy the Imperial Sky Pavilion. After that, he would leave everything to Qi Wuhan and the next generation. However, right at this moment, a strange smile appeared on Chu Xiu's face. City Lord Yi is very confident. But sometimes, it's best not to be so full of yourself. Sect Master Fong, it's time for you to make an appearance. Your High Heaven sect won't go back on its word, right? As soon as Chu Xiu's voice fell, Fong Yinglong stepped into the air. His 9 dragon robes fluttered in the wind, and his aura soared into the sky. Don't worry, the promise of my High Heaven sect is even stronger than a divine weapon. After seeing Fong Yinglong, Yi Weikong's expression finally changed. Things seemed to have gotten out of his control. Chapter 12:10. The moment Fong Yinglong appeared, Yi Weikong sensed that the situation was already out of his control. He was aware of the grudge between the High Heaven sect and the Imperial Sky Pavilion, but it was precisely because of this that the High Heaven sect shouldn't be here. He should be watching the tigers fight from the sidelines. Yi Weikong stared at Fong Yinglong and said in a deep voice, "I really didn't expect the High Heaven sect to take action this time. Do you think the threat of my Cold River City is even greater than that of your old enemy, the Imperial Sky Pavilion?" Fong Yinglong nodded and said, "That's right. Your threat is indeed greater than that of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. The High Heaven sect and the Imperial Sky Pavilion have been fighting for tens of thousands of years, so we know the Imperial Sky Pavilion very well. We know where their upper and lower limits are. However, I don't know much about your Cold River City. An unknown existence is the most worthy of caution." Hearing the conversation between Yi Weikong and Fong Yinglong, Chu Xiu suddenly felt that the Daoist people still had a lot of strong points. For example, they were very straightforward in their actions and words. They rarely played games. For example, if Fong Yinglong were to be replaced by the people from the Righteous Path sects in the lower realm right now, they would definitely talk about how they could not allow Fong Yinglong to destroy the Imperial Sky Pavilion in order to ensure the East's peace and stability. However, Fong Yinglong was very straightforward. "I feel that you are a greater threat than the Imperial Sky Pavilion, so I will obstruct you and not let you succeed." There was no such thing as a big reason. It was just that it concerned the interests of the sect, so he had to do it. However, Fong Yinglong paused and looked at Chu Xiu. Of course, this is only one of the reasons. The other reason is that this Chu is eloquent and has a profound understanding of the Tao of domination. The conditions he proposed are something that the High Heaven sect can't refuse. As soon as these words were spoken, Chu Xiu immediately felt Yi Weikong's gaze turn towards him, and his gaze contained killing intent. Chu Xiu, he didn't feel that Fong Yinglong was straightforward. Although he was a martial immortal expert, his thoughts were very dirty. He didn't forget to make a junior cultivator hate him at a time like this. Looking at Fang Yinglong, Yi Weikong suddenly smiled. Fang Yinglong, when was the last time we fought? A few decades or 100 years ago? At that time, you were not even a martial immortal. The #1 expert in the eastern region. I have never fought with you for this position. It has been yours from the very beginning. This time, I want to experience exactly how strong you, the #1 expert in the eastern region, are. A martial immortal level expert would not retreat so easily. Last time, Yi Weikong had only wanted to teach Chu Xiu a lesson but ended up running into a primeval sovereign. It didn't matter that time, so he retreated. This time, he had gathered the elites of the entire Cold River City to destroy the Imperial Sky Pavilion in one go. How could he possibly retreat? The extremely powerful Lord of Cold River City in the past would not retreat twice in the same place. As soon as Yi Weikong finished speaking, he took a step forward. The aura around him was like a whirlwind, and it gave rise to waves of icy storms. The shrill cold wind mixed with snowflakes drifted down. As Yi Weikong's aura rose explosively to the peak, an area of several hundred feet around him was instantly enveloped by the winter snow. Chu Xiu felt as though he was in the drifts now city of the northern realms in the lower realms. Chu Xiu could not tell the aura of a martial immortal expert. He only knew that the other party was very strong. However, Fang Yinglong's expression changed. 7th Heaven Martial Immortal. You've actually stepped into the 7th Heaven. Previously, there had been rumors in the eastern region that Yi Weikong had the strength of the 6th Heaven and could reach the 7th Heaven if he exerted his full strength. But now, he actually had the strength of the 7th Heaven. Zhong Qiushui's expression also turned solemn. When he fought with Yi Weikong last time, the other party actually held back. His true strength of the 7th Heaven was most likely prepared for the High Heaven sect. Although the martial immortal realm was divided into 9 levels in detail, everyone still habitually thought that the 1st to the 3rd heaven was a world, the 4th to the 6th heaven was another world, and the 7th to the 9th heaven was the real peak of the martial immortal realm. The difference of 1 level between the 6th heaven and the 7th heaven was actually very big. Therefore, when Yi Weikong exerted his full strength, it was close to the 7th heaven. However, the gap between the 7th heaven and the 8th heaven was not that big. Now, Yi Weikong was not only a cause for fear, but also fully qualified to challenge Fang Yinglong, the #1 expert in the eastern region. There was no expression on Yi Weikong's face, but behind him, layers of frost storms danced, and finally turned into a huge ice dragon roaring. Yi Weikong stretched out his hand and the huge ice dragon turned into a dragon-shaped long saber in his hand. In the dragon-shaped long saber, frost flowed. It did not contain his world power, but a kind of world rules. Yi Weikong was equivalent to turning a divine ability into a weapon, and holding it in his hand. Fang Yinglong took a step forward. 9 dragons roared around him, and golden dragons made of energy spiraled in the air, tearing at Yi Weikong. When martial immortals truly fought, the might they gave off was akin to a battle between deities. It was truly destructive. Thus, Fang Yinglong and Yi Weikong appeared in the air and fought fiercely. They did not land on the ground. However, Zhong Qiushui, who was standing next to Chu Xiu, had a conflicted expression, as if he didn't know if he should go or not. Chu Xiu said in confusion, "Pavilion Master, what are you waiting for? Even if we can't defeat Yi Weikong by joining hands with Fang Yinglong, we must at least seriously injure him. You wouldn't be thinking of watching the tigers fight, right?" Zhong Qiushui's expression turned a bit ugly. "What am I waiting for? One is an 8th level martial immortal, the other is a 7th level martial immortal. If I charge forward, I'm afraid I'll be the first one to be seriously injured." Chu Xiu said in surprise, "They're both martial immortals, and there's only a difference of a few heavens. Why is there such a huge difference?" Zhong Qiushui snorted coldly, "A difference of a few heavens? When you were at the True Fire Spirit Refinement realm, you could easily kill Profound Insight realm cultivators. How did you look at those ordinary true fire spirit refinement realm cultivators back then? That's how Fang Yinglong and Yi Weikong look at me now. Chu Xiu was speechless after hearing Zhong Qiushui's words. If that was the case, the difference was quite huge. However, even though Zhong Qiushui said that, he still charged forward and attacked Yi Weikong together with Fang Yinglong. Yi Weikong was seriously injured, and the Royal Sky Pavilion benefited the most from it. Besides, if he really didn't attack and angered Fang Yinglong, they would be dumbfounded. However, Zhong Qiushui was indeed a bit miserable. He had just charged forward when Yi Weikong smashed him down with a punch. Chu Xiu could only watch the battle between martial immortals. In fact, he couldn't even understand the battle between Fang Yinglong and Yi Weikong. So, Chu Xiu didn't stay idle. With a wave of his hand, he ordered his subordinates and the cultivators of the Royal Sky Pavilion to attack Cold River City together. This time, Chu Xiu really didn't hold back. All the elites under him who had participated in the battle to exterminate Blood River sect also charged forward with him. It didn't matter whether the Royal Sky Pavilion existed or not. What was important was that Cold River City had already viewed Chu Xiu as a thorn in its side. If he didn't seriously injure Yi Weikong, his Kangwu County would never have a day of peace. Chu Xiu had just stepped into the battlefield when Qi Wuhan, who was clad in icy blue armor, leaped in front of Chu Xiu. His eyes flickered with chilling killing intent. Chu Xiu. If I had known this earlier, I would have killed you at all costs when I was in Lingluo County. At this time, Qi Wuhan was really regretful. At that time, he thought that he had attached great importance to Chu Xiu. He didn't expect that he didn't attach enough importance to Chu Xiu. Given Cold River City's size, they only had one chance to strike. If they failed to annihilate the Imperial Heaven Pavilion this time, they would not be able to make up for the manpower and resources they had consumed. The next time they struck, unless something unexpected happened to the Imperial Heaven Pavilion, Cold River City might have to wait for a very long time before they could accumulate such strength again. All this was because Chu Xiu had used some method to invite the High Heaven sect to attack. At all costs? Qi Wuhan, you're thinking too much. Even if you really wanted to kill me at all costs, the result might be worse than now. Qi Wuhan shouted angrily. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Chu Xiu anymore. He opened up his domain. Endless storms condensed in the domain and shrouded Chu Xiu directly. Yi Weikong was fighting desperately above, so he naturally had to fight desperately below. In fact, Cold River City really had no way out. After all, their foundation was the shallowest. If they didn't take advantage of the fact that Yi Weikong was still alive and Cold River City was at its peak to attack and lay a foundation, no one knew what the next generation would be like. The god domain around Chu Xiu opened up and directly bombarded Qi Wuhan with his domain. In the god domain, the five elements were in disorder, yin and yang were reversed, and a powerful force twisted and strangled everything. Qi Wuhan's domain was very fragile in front of Chu Xiu's domain. It was directly melted and swallowed up quickly. At this moment, Qi Wuhan looked at Chu Xiu as if he had seen a ghost. Everyone had a domain. Although different domain attributes did restrain each other, it also depended on the specific strength of the martial artist. Now, Chu Xiu's realm was obviously lower than his, but his domain completely restrained him. What kind of domain was this? Seeing that Chu Xiu's god domain had eroded his domain step by step, Qi Wuhan roared angrily. A huge ice dragon behind him roared, integrated into his fist wind, and directly punched at Chu Xiu. Wherever the punch passed, even the essence of heaven and earth seemed to be stagnant and frozen, but Chu Xiu didn't dodge. He also punched. The fire of internal force around his body was burning and blooming, and the qi and blood in his body had boiled to the extreme. Before Chu Xiu fought with Qi Wuhan, he knew that Qi Wuhan's ice soul divine power was extremely powerful and overbearing, which could freeze internal force, qi, blood, and even spirit. Therefore, at this time, Chu Xiu burned the fire of internal force to the extreme, making his qi and blood boil. Qi Wuhan couldn't freeze this pure physical strength. The two fists collided like an explosion of ice and fire. Chu Xiu's figure stood still, but Qi Wuhan was directly blasted away. Chapter 12:11. The last time Qi Wuhan had seen Chu Xiu fight was during the martial arts duel in Lingxiao City. At that time, Chu Xiu had yet to truly step into the mysterious heaven and earth realm. Therefore, Qi Wuhan's impression of Chu Xiu's strength also remained at that time. For others, there shouldn't be any changes in their strength in less than a year. However, for Chu Xiu, the difference in strength between the current him and him during the martial arts gamble was like heaven and earth. This world of difference was not because Chu Xiu had officially stepped into the mysterious heaven and earth realm, but because he had seen heavenly souls and thoroughly sorted out his martial arts. His control over his strength had reached the peak. Qi Wuhan looked at Chu Xiu in shock, but before he could recover from his shock, Chu Xiu had already attacked again. The fierce blade radiance on the formation seemed to have condensed into a substance and slashed towards the ground. Earth devastation, one of the 7 ultimate limits, was unleashed. The powerful force penetrated the ground, and in the next moment, the ground under Qi Wuhan's feet began to crack inch by inch. Countless blade lights rose up from under his feet, enveloping him within. There was a strange power in the blade radiance, as if the ground under Qi Wuhan's feet had produced a strong suction force, making it impossible for him to break free. In the next moment, layers of icicle armor began to appear around Qi Wuhan's body to resist the blade radiance. Although the icicles would be torn apart by the blade radiance in an instant, they condensed in the blink of an eye and consumed the power of the blade radiance. In the end, an ice dragon bloomed around Qi Wuhan's body, surrounding him to break free from the suction force and step into the air. However, at that moment, a blade radiance with an extreme sharpness that could cut through everything fell. It tore apart the icicles around Qi Wuhan's body and directly tore apart the armor on his body. Qi Wuhan roared angrily, and his left hand grabbed onto Chu Xiu's formation. The extremely sharp formation tore open the web between his thumb and index finger. After the dark red blood flowed out, it turned into an icy blue color and spread up the knife god. This made Chu Xiu frown. He could feel that the cold blood had actually frozen the artifact spirit that had broken the formation. It was even freezing his physical body and stellar energy. As the heir of Cold River City, Qi Wuhan certainly had a trump card. Not everyone was like Chu Xiu, who could successfully grasp a divine ability at the true fire spirit refinement realm. But for people like Qi Wuhan, although they couldn't master divine abilities, they managed to control part of the power of divine abilities through various methods. For example, Lu Sanjin's small swords that had the power of divine powers, and now, Qi Wuhan had integrated the power of laws into his flesh and blood, using the power of his flesh and blood to drive the laws of heaven and earth. Under the suppression of the ice-cold blood, even though Chu Xiu had unleashed the true fire of his inner strength to its limits, he was still unable to melt it quickly. At this time, Qi Wuhan's right fist smashed down with a powerful force. The coldness condensed, and the ice crystal burst. Chu Xiu sneered and also used his left fist to fight against Qi Wuhan with pure strength. He didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all, and even faintly suppressed Qi Wuhan. Qi Wuhan already felt that something was wrong as he fought. Chu Xiu's physical strength was amazing. Even though he was at the peak of the mysterious enlightenment realm, he didn't have the upper hand in this kind of battle. In particular, although he had refined the power of laws into his flesh and blood, and he was using this power to suppress Chu Xiu's artifact spirit and a part of his own power, what he lost was the power of qi and blood. Feeling that something was wrong, the next moment, a faint blue light bloomed in Qi Wuhan's eyes. The coldness went straight to the mind, trying to freeze Chu Xiu's primordial spirit. Cold River City was not good at primordial spirit secret methods. This kind of power to freeze primordial spirit was just a manifestation of the power of laws. But the next moment, Qi Wuhan's complexion changed. Because his divine light that could freeze primordial spirit directly penetrated Chu Xiu's body and completely missed. Illusion again. Qi Wuhan secretly said that it was not good. He had long known that Chu Xiu had a very strange illusion, and even he couldn't see the flaws and weaknesses. He had just dispersed all his spiritual force around to investigate the surrounding movement, but in the next moment, his face suddenly darkened, and he secretly cursed. That was an illusion just now, but it was not the illusion he had imagined. His own hand was still on the blade, and the qi and blood integrated with the power of laws was still suppressing the power of Chu Xiu. How could Chu Xiu escape with an illusion? Therefore, the icy divine light just now was not avoided by Chu Xiu, but was forcibly resisted by him. Instead, Chu Xiu used an illusion to confuse him. At this time, Qi Wuhan wanted to withdraw his spiritual force, but it was too late. The powerful primordial spirit impact, like an arrow, penetrated his mind. It was an arrow condensed by the pure power of primordial spirit, extremely simple, without any auxiliary power. But because of this, Qi Wuhan, who had just spread out his spiritual force, could not defend. The power of primordial spirit exploded, and Qi Wuhan immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His face turned pale, and his left hand finally broke away from the broken formation. The next moment, the scorching true fire of the sun and the evil fire of world annihilation ignited around Chu Xiu at the same time. His figure began to directly soar, and in an instant, all the power around him was swallowed up by him. When the law phenomenon was performed, at this moment, Chu Xiu was like a powerful devil god who could chase the clouds and the sun and control the power of flames in the ancient legends. When his fist smashed down, there was a loud explosion. All the power around Qi Wuhan was completely shattered, his gang qi was broken, and his battle armor was shattered. He was blown away by Chu Xiu for dozens of feet, and a large amount of blood gushed out. The power of the law phenomenon only lasted for a time before it was stopped by Chu Xiu. Chu Xiu had used this magic many times, and now he could almost control the power in it perfectly, so he would not be completely sucked up by the power in it. At this time, Qi Wuhan was extremely miserable. The punch of the law phenomenon, which had reached the extreme power, almost shattered half of the bones and meridians in their bodies, and they were directly injured. He was the future heir of Cold River City, and he carried the ambition to destroy the Imperial Sky Pavilion and strengthen Cold River City in the future. In the end, all these things were blasted away in front of Chu Xiu's punch. Of course, these useless sorrowful things only existed in Qi Wuhan's mind for a little time, and then they were extinguished by him. Because now was not the time to think about these things. Behind him, Chu Xiu had already slashed at him with a saber. Qi Wuhan fiercely gritted his teeth, and the remaining power around him was pushed to the extreme. The blood and qi in his whole body were suffused with an extremely cold color, and his body suddenly burst out like an ice arrow. Moreover, there was still a deep chill behind him, affecting Chu Xiu and delaying his power movement. Chu Xiu frowned slightly. In fact, this time, if there was a chance, he wanted to kill all the warriors in Cold River City here. He had completely fallen out with Cold River City. After killing Ancestor Blood River, Cold River City was even more eager to get rid of him. If he took this opportunity to completely destroy Cold River City, his southern barbaric land would be much more stable in the future. However, Cold River City was not easy to deal with. Not to mention Yi Weikong, Qi Wuhan had a lot of trump cards. He only wanted to escape at all costs, so Chu Xiu really couldn't do anything to him. At this time, Chu Xiu was also struggling whether he should use the magical power of clear sky reflecting shadow to keep Qi Wuhan here. Once clear sky reflecting shadow was used, as long as Qi Wuhan was still in his sight, he would almost certainly die. However, when he was dealing with Luo Mo last time, Chu Xiu had already felt the power and powerful backlash of this move. Using it to deal with Qi Wuhan, no matter how he looked at it, it felt like using a dragon blade to kill a chicken. It was not worth it. Just as Chu Xiu was struggling, a wild laughter suddenly came. Even if the blood turns blue, it is still blood. With me, Blood Sea Demon Venerable Lu Jianghe here, no one can escape. Endless qi and blood converged into a mighty sea of blood, and strands of blood condensed from the sea of blood. As Lu Jianghe waved his hand, those blood strands directly wrapped around Qi Wuhan's body, affecting the power of qi and blood in his body. Qi Wuhan suddenly froze there, looking at Lu Jianghe with eyes full of resentment and hatred. At this time, Lu Jianghe had already stepped into the mysterious heaven and earth realm. With his strength foundation, even after the breakthrough, he directly skipped the early stage of mysterious heaven and earth realm, which needed to adapt to the power. In fact, Lu Jianghe was able to step into this realm thanks to the soul blood of Blood River ancestor that Chu Xiu brought back. There was only a small ball of soul blood, but it was used by Blood River ancestor to store the true spirit. It was not contaminated at all, and it was extremely pure. Although after Lu Jianghe obtained the small ball of qi and blood, he was still complaining that Chu Xiu was stingy and only brought back such a small thing for him. After he began to refine the small ball of qi and blood, he immediately felt the power coming from the soul blood. He immediately stopped complaining and began to cultivate in seclusion. Previously, Lu Jianghe was already at the peak of the true fire spirit refinement realm. If it wasn't because he was too lazy to cultivate in seclusion, he might even have reached the mysterious heaven and earth realm by now. Therefore, at this time, when Lu Jianghe broke through, his strength was so powerful that it did not seem like he was at the early stage of mysterious heaven and earth realm at all. With Lu Jianghe holding back Qi Wuhan, the formation-breaking tool in Chu Xiu's hand bloomed with extreme sharpness. When the knife slashed down, Qi Wuhan's hand formed a seal to block it, but one of his arms was instantly torn off. At the next moment, Qi Wuhan roared angrily, and the ice-blue qi and blood around his body condensed in his other hand, flashing with extremely strong power. However, at this time, Lu Jianghe sneered and said, "You don't learn from your mistakes. How dare you play with qi and blood in front of me, Blood Sea Demon Venerable?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Jianghe waved his hand, and the ice-blue qi and blood in Qi Wuhan's body began to run wildly and flow backward. The instant backlash caused Qi Wuhan to vomit a large mouthful of blood, and his aura became extremely low. Just as Lu Jianghe was about to say something proudly, the formation-breaking tool's extreme sharpness had already fallen, and Qi Wuhan's head was directly cut off. Lu Jianghe turned his head and looked at Chu Xiu with dissatisfaction. "You stole my head." Chapter 12:12. Lu Jianghe was very upset that Chu Xiu had stolen his kill. He wasn't a monster like Chu Xiu, who killed heaven and earth mysterious state cultivators like killing chickens when he was in the true fire spirit refinement state. This was the first time he could kill someone in the heaven and earth mysterious state, but Chu Xiu had stolen his kill. He was very dissatisfied. However, Lu Jianghe was tactful and didn't complain about this. Instead, he went to Chu Xiu and mumbled, "Official Chu, Cult Master Chu, now that I'm in the heaven and earth mysterious state, shouldn't you consider changing my title to Blood Sea Lord? Patriarch Dugu had 4 demon lords in the past. You can't have one less, can you? This way, I'll be Blood Sea Lord. Old Wei has prestige and has worked hard all these years, so there must be a place for him. As for Old Shang, although he isn't very capable and has a bad temper, he's in the heaven and earth mysterious state. Give him the title of Demon Lord. Keep the last one. Let's see who steps into the heaven and earth mysterious state first between Lu Fengxian and Mei Qinglian. What do you think?" Compared to the head of a heaven and earth mysterious state cultivator, Lu Jianghe cared more about the position of Blood Sea Lord. Lu Jianghe had been obsessed with this position for 500 years, so much so that it had almost become an obsession. However, Chu Xiu didn't care about Lu Jianghe. Instead, he looked at the sky with a grave expression. With Qi Wuhan's death, Yi Weikong had gone mad. Qi Wuhan was actually very important to Yi Weikong because he was the successor he had chosen. He was the next leader of Cold River City and the future of Cold River City. Therefore, to Yi Weikong, Qi Wuhan was even more important than his own son. But now, Qi Wuhan had died in the hands of Chu Xiu. What did this mean? It meant that Cold River City had almost no future. After all, Cold River City had only risen for one generation, so its foundation was relatively weak. Although as long as Yi Weikong was here, it was still possible to nurture another successor, but there wasn't enough time. Could a successor that was nurtured in a hurry compare to Qi Wuhan? Yi Weikong didn't know. Therefore, in his opinion, the future of Cold River City was uncertain after Qi Wuhan's death. With a furious roar, Yi Weikong's power erupted to its peak. He even had the feeling of putting his life on the line. This kind of imposing power instantly caused Zhong Qiushui to cough up blood. Even Fang Yinglong could only retreat, not daring to face it head-on. After all, Fang Yinglong was only here to help. It was fine as long as the Imperial Sky Pavilion was not destroyed and the balance in the East region was not affected. Why should he fight to the death with Yi Weikong? Therefore, under this kind of situation, Yi Weikong was able to unleash his godly might, heavily injuring Zhong Qiushui and forcing Fang Yinglong to retreat. However, his own consumption was not small. He glanced coldly at Zhong Qiushui and Fang Yinglong, and also looked deeply at Chu Xiu. Yi Weikong directly turned around and left, retreating with the people of Cold River City. Although he was angry now, Yi Weikong also knew that if he didn't leave now, he wouldn't have another chance. Qi Wuhan was dead, and Cold River City had no successor, but its future was uncertain. But if he were to die here today, then Cold River City would really be destroyed. Seeing that Yi Weikong wanted to escape, Chu Xiu hurriedly shouted at Fang Yinglong, "Sect Master Fang. If Yi Weikong leaves safely now, High Heaven Sect will have endless troubles in the future." Fang Yinglong glanced at Chu Xiu and snorted coldly, "Of course I know." Although Fang Yinglong was not a cultivator of the same generation as Yi Weikong, he also knew that Yi Weikong was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. If he returned to Cold River City unscathed, he would definitely find a way to take revenge on High Heaven Sect. Therefore, Fang Yinglong also hung behind Yi Weikong, attacking unhurriedly. The Eastern Territory needed balance. Unless Emperor Sky Pavilion and Cold River City were destroyed at the same time, it would be better for both Cold River City and Emperor Sky Pavilion to weaken, leaving High Heaven Sect alone to maintain the balance in the Eastern Territory. Because Yi Weikong had to escape while protecting his disciples of Cold River City, he had suffered a lot of injuries at this time. However, he forced himself to retreat to the edge of the southern barbaric land, close to Lingluo County. 9 dragons coiled around Fang Yinglong, directly supporting a heaven and earth, trapping Yi Weikong in it. Yi Weikong also sensed that this should be Fang Yinglong's last attack, and it was also his strongest attack. Therefore, in the next moment, Yi Weikong's aura had completely condensed into his body. His seemingly light finger descended, but the boundless cold air in midair condensed into a huge finger that descended. Everywhere it passed, everything was frozen. Even time was frozen in the same way. This was Yi Weikong's unique and powerful divine ability, the freezing ice divine finger. Although it sounded ordinary and even resembled a low-level martial skill, it was a genuine and powerful divine ability that could change the laws of heaven and earth. The 9 dragons that seemed capable of tearing apart the heavens and earth were frozen in mid-air, and endless power was roaring. At that instant, Chu Xiu seemed to have seen the end of the world. There was no longer any color in mid-air. He could only see the void being torn apart by the 2 powers, and the storm that had turned into astral energy howling furiously. Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes, and pushed the heaven sun gazing at air to the extreme, wanting to see the rules of the battle. Unfortunately, the cultivation of a level 8 martial immortal was simply too powerful. Even though Chu Xiu's eyes had turned completely red, so much so that his eyes were bloodshot, he was only barely able to see the faint power of laws. But to Chu Xiu's relief, Yi Weikong couldn't hold on much longer. After all, Fang Yinglong was a level higher than him, and he had the inheritance of High Heaven sect, so in terms of power, he was still stronger than Yue Kong. The two sides had already fought to this extent. Even if Fang Yinglong didn't want to fight to the death, he couldn't stop at this time. Just when Chu Xiu thought that the two of them were going to fight to the death, in the depths of the southern barbaric land, clouds of smoke rolled down, and a powerful aura suddenly erupted like a volcano. The aura actually overlapped with Yue Kong's and Fang Yinglong's aura, and directly shrouded the area visible to the naked eye. The aura that erupted in the southern barbaric land didn't belong to anyone, but the pure world Qi. With the addition of this aura, it gave Yue Kong and Fang Yinglong some leeway. The two of them restrained their power almost at the same time. Fang Yinglong's complexion was only a little pale, but Yue Kong's aura was extremely unstable. Obviously, because of the fierce battle and the divine ability he used, his source energy was injured. The two of them looked at each other, and a touch of surprise appeared in their eyes. They shouted in a low voice, "It's a blessed paradise." As a martial immortal level expert, as well as the leader of a peak power in the Daoist heaven, they were all people who had seen the world. Thus, they naturally knew what was going on. That aura was the aura of the birth of a blessed abode. Currently, the interior of the Daoist Ocean was controlled by the major sections. There was basically no undiscovered blessed paradise. But in the southern barbaric land, an undeveloped area, it was normal for a blessed paradise to appear. In fact, Li Wuxiang had been to the place where the aura of the blessed paradise appeared before. Back then, due to the barbarian tribes' uprising, Li Wuxiang suppressed them and killed quite a few people. However, he didn't discover the blessed paradise. Perhaps it was because Li Wuxiang's power wasn't enough, but this time, two 8th-level martial immortal experts were fighting fiercely. Furthermore, it was a battle of life and death using their full power. It caused the surrounding natural laws to change, and thus, the power of the blessed paradise was triggered, causing it to appear. The blessed abode had already appeared in the world. Moreover, Fang Yinglong only wanted to suppress Cold River City. He didn't want to force Yue Kong into a life-and-death struggle. Therefore, he didn't continue to attack and directly headed in the direction of the blessed abode. The blessed paradise was formed by the natural world. It was the first time a blessed paradise had been opened. Perhaps there were some powerful existences formed by the natural world, and some dangers. But at the same time, the blessed paradise that hadn't been opened for countless years also contained countless natural treasures. Following behind the two people, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a hint of pity. The blessed paradise's appearance was too untimely. Even if it was a few dozen breaths later, the outcome of the battle between Fang Yinglong and Yue Kong would be decided. But looking at Yue Kong's appearance, his source energy should have suffered heavy damage. At least, he wouldn't be able to fight for a period of time. The appearance of such an unexploited blessed paradise was a great opportunity for anyone. Right now, the opportunity was right in front of Chu Xiu. Naturally, Chu Xiu wouldn't sit back and do nothing. Although Fang Yinglong was there, and the martial immortal expert definitely got the most out of it, it was still good for him to go in and have a sip of the soup. After following Yue Kong and Fang Yinglong into the depths of the southern barbaric land, Chu Xiu finally saw the appearance of the so-called blessed paradise. The blessed paradise was a pure space. To be precise, it should be a subsidiary space of the Daoist Ocean. It was an independent but attached existence to the Daoist Ocean. The mystic worlds in the lower realm should also be regarded as a kind of blessed paradise. Even the green capital space where Shang Tianliang was located was a blessed paradise. The blessed paradise that Chu Xiu had seen before was formed after 10,000 years of transformation and accumulation in High Heaven Sect and Imperial Sky Pavilion. The pure natural blessed paradise in front of him really surprised Chu Xiu. There was no entrance to the blessed paradise in front of him, but it was like a huge grave mound, sitting on the ground and stretching for hundreds of meters. The aura it exuded was incredibly pure and powerful. Fang Yinglong stared at the huge mound and frowned, a natural spirit array? At present, the huge mound had yet to be exposed, and there was a huge natural spirit array hidden under it. Generally speaking, a blessed paradise that could give birth to a spirit array of this level was not ordinary. While there were opportunities, there were also great dangers. Chapter 12-13. Fang Yinglong couldn't open the blessed cave paradise that suddenly appeared. Although Fang Yinglong could break the spirit array by force, he could easily destroy the blessed cave paradise. Fang Yinglong spoke indifferently as he gazed at Yi Weikong. Yi Weikong, your luck is very good. Lead the members of your Cold River City and retreat. Otherwise, your Cold River City won't even be able to keep its last trace of survival. Yi Weikong snorted coldly and said, My Cold River City can't survive. Is this what your High Heaven sect wants? Fang Yinglong, your High Heaven sect is too calculative. It's fine if you want to maintain your position as the overlord of the East Territory, but there will come a day when you can't control the situation. After saying that, Yi Weikong turned around and left. Before leaving, he looked deeply at Chu Xiu with undisguised killing intent in his eyes. Chu Xiu looked back without fear. Because of the South Barbaric Land, the conflict between him, Yi Weikong, and Cold River City could no longer be reconciled. Anyway, a great enmity had been formed. So what if he bore a grudge? Although it didn't feel good to bear a grudge from a martial immortal powerhouse. Fang Yinglong said to Chu Xiu calmly, according to our previous agreement, I've already helped you take care of Yi Weikong. Now, your Imperial Sky Pavilion should also keep your promise and hand over that prefecture. Don't make me, White Sovereign City, go and take it myself. Chu Xiu said lightly, don't worry. The Imperial Sky Pavilion won't go back on its promise. Anyway, that province belonged to the Imperial Sky Pavilion, not him, Chu Xiu. Of course, he wouldn't feel bad about it. Glancing at the big tomb, Fang Yinglong said in a deep voice, when this blessed cave paradise appears, there will definitely be a lot of powerhouses who will enter and compete for it. In particular, the place where this blessed cave paradise will appear is very awkward. It doesn't belong to our East Territory, but to the South Barbaric Land. So, when the time comes, there may be big sects and powerhouses from the South Territory coming to snatch it. The cultivators of the East Territory should unite together to fight against the outsiders first and then distribute the benefits. When you go back, tell Zhong Qiushui about this. I'll go back to High Heaven Sect and invite some array grandmasters to come and crack the natural spirit array in this blessed cave paradise. With that, Fang Yinglong turned around and left. He was not afraid that the Royal Sky Pavilion would be the first to enter the blessed paradise. Zhong Qiushui was also a martial immortal level expert, and the Royal Sky Pavilion also had their own heritage. He should know the consequences of forcibly breaching the blessed paradise. A moment later, Zhong Qiushui also rushed over from behind. However, Zhong Qiushui looked a little miserable. His face was pale, and even Chu Xiu could feel that his aura seemed to be a little unstable. Chu Xiu asked in surprise, Pavilion Master, your injuries are this serious? Zhong Qiushui snorted coldly and said, Did your master not teach you the difference between martial immortals? A gap of 1 heavenly layer can be made up for, but I'm 3 or 4 heavenly layers weaker than them. To be able to block their power is already not bad. This kind of thing was actually not shameful. After all, these two people, one was recognized as the strongest in the Eastern Domain, and the other was also the Lord of Cold River City, who had risen to fame in the whole Daoist in the recent hundreds of years. Yi Weikong left? Chu Xiu pointed to the large tomb in front of him and said, the power caused by their fight was too strong, and it drew out this hidden blessed paradise. Naturally, they couldn't fight. However, this is also a good thing. Our Royal Sky Pavilion is close to the water, and when this blessed paradise is opened, we can also share some of the benefits. Zhong Qianxiu sighed and shook his head. I'm afraid it won't be that easy. I'd rather not have this blessed paradise. It's best if I get rid of that old guy Yi Weikong. This time, that old guy Yi Weikong was seriously injured and didn't die. When he makes a move again, I'm afraid it won't be so easy to deal with him. Also, although this blessed paradise is the closest to my royal sky pavilion, it's deep in the southern barbaric land. I'm afraid it will attract those people from the southern domain. Those people from the southern domain are not to be trifled with. I'll stay here for a while and wait for the people from High Heaven sect to come before fighting for it. Matters involving the two domains are no longer something my sect can influence. It's up to High Heaven sect to take the lead. As the number one sect in the Eastern Domain, High Heaven sect has shown enough prestige, so when it comes to the critical moment, High Heaven sect must stand at the forefront on behalf of the Eastern Domain. After becoming the pavilion master of Royal Sky Pavilion, Zhong Qiushui's character had changed a lot, becoming much calmer. If it was in the past, Zhong Qiushui wouldn't have said such cowardly words, but now it was natural. As long as he could preserve the strength of Royal Sky Pavilion as much as possible, what couldn't Zhong Qiushui do? After a few days, the entire southern barbaric land was bustling with noise and excitement. Many Eastern region martial artists came to watch when they heard about the birth of a blessed place. Perhaps some people had the thought of getting a piece of the pie. Although many people knew that they didn't even have the qualification to drink soup in front of the top sects, they still came. After all, the birth of a blessed paradise was not common. It should be said that it had not been common in recent years. When these ancient sects first came to the Daoist continent, there were still many blessed paradises. Some big sects even established their sects around those blessed paradises. However, after so many years had passed, the blessed lands that should have been excavated had already been excavated. It was rare to hear news of the blessed lands appearing in the world. This was something that would only happen once in 1,000 years. Most of the people in the Jianghu did not want to give up on it. While waiting for High Heaven sect to come, in addition to arranging his stronghold in the southern barbaric land and paying attention to the concealment, Chu Xiu also contacted Tianhun once. Tianhun told Chu Xiu not to follow the old path of Dugu Weiwei, but this old path only referred to learning and imitating Dugu Weiwei's martial Dao route. As for some experience in martial Dao cultivation and other aspects, it didn't matter. Even the same martial skill, even if it was inherited from Dugu Weiwei, as long as Chu Xiu could infuse it into his own martial Dao, then his future path would be different from Dugu Weiwei's. Once again contacting Chu Xiu, Tianhun nodded in satisfaction and said, "Not bad, very good. Your strength is much stronger than last time." Chu Xiu said in surprise, "You're able to sense my specific strength through just a essence-soul connection?" Tianhun smiled and said, "You and I were originally one, so naturally, we can sense each other. However, your memory has been erased, so you can't sense me, but I can clearly sense you." What Tianhun said was very reasonable, but Chu Xiu felt a little uncomfortable. He didn't want others to sense him, even if this person was once an existence of the same origin as him. "Well, time is pressing. Let's not talk nonsense. You asked me to come, is there a problem?" Chu Xiu said, "It's not a problem of cultivation, but a problem about the blessed grotto heaven, which is the natural mystic realm in the lower realm. In the southern barbarian land under my jurisdiction, a new unexploited blessed grotto heaven has appeared. It should attract many big sects to compete for it. However, that place is in the southern barbarian land. No matter who gets that place in the end, they will definitely occupy it. I'm worried that my stronghold in the southern barbarian land will be discovered. Is there a way to destroy it with my strength?" This matter was what Chu Xiu had been thinking about during this time, but he didn't come up with a result. In the end, he had to ask Tianhun for help. In fact, it was a good thing to have a blessed grotto heaven appear. Even if it appeared next to the Cangnan mansion, Chu Xiu didn't care. At worst, he could just give up the prefectural guard mansion. But the southern barbarian land was related to the passage to the lower realm. Chu Xiu couldn't just give it up. Tianhun raised his eyebrows and said, "You want to destroy a blessed grotto heaven? This thing can be said to be difficult, but it can also be said to be simple. Whether it is the so-called blessed grotto heaven or the mystic realm, they are actually small spaces parasitic on a complete world. Although they have rich qi of heaven and earth and can produce all kinds of strange phenomena, it also proves that they are incomplete and fragile. As long as you have enough strength, you can completely destroy them by force. Of course, your current strength is still a little weak, so you can only use another way, that is to find the core of the mystic realm. Core? Tianhun nodded and said, in fact, every mystic realm will have a core. The core is the strongest point in the mystic realm and also the existence that supports the entire mystic realm. As long as you can destroy it or find a way to bring it out, the mystic realm will naturally be destroyed. Do you see the pillar tied to me behind me? That is the core of this spiritual cloud realm, but its original body was just an ordinary iron pillar. Later, many Daoist masters joined forces to refine it into this shape. If you are lucky, the core of the mystic realm can be easily destroyed or taken away. If it is like this thing behind me, which is strong enough to support a small world, then you can only blame your bad luck. Although Tianhun pointed out a path for Chu Xiu, this path still depended on luck. Chu Xiu now felt that the feng shui of the southern barbarian land seemed to be a little bad. There were always some big and small things happening here. No wonder the Imperial Sky Pavilion was unwilling to develop here before. A few days later, High Heaven sect came again, and it was not Fang Yinglong who came alone. Instead, he brought a large number of High Heaven sect elites and Linghu Immortal Mountain. The entire High Heaven sect was left with only Qin Baiyuan. Similarly, in the Imperial Sky Pavilion, Lu Sanjin also came with a group of Imperial Sky Pavilion elites, but compared to High Heaven sect, they looked a little shabby. After High Heaven sect arrived, they directly sealed off the Heavenly Cave Blessed Land and began to crack the natural spirit array. Although this overbearing action made some Eastern Territory cultivators a little unhappy, High Heaven sect had dominated the Eastern Territory for so many years. Even if they were unhappy, what could they do? They could only obediently step aside. At this moment, a playful voice suddenly sounded, "The southern barbarian land does not belong to your Eastern Territory. Does your High Heaven sect really think that it is not the Eastern Territory but the Daoist?" Chapter 12:14. Whether it was the people from High Heaven sect or Imperial Sky Pavilion, they weren't too surprised by this sudden voice. With such a thing happening, it would be strange if the people from the Southern Territory didn't come to intervene. As this voice fell, hundreds of cultivators emerged from the depths of the jungle of the southern barbaric land. There were both strong and weak cultivators. The one who spoke was wearing a pitch-black battle armor. The battle armor didn't seem to be made of gold or iron, but more like some kind of strange bone. It was strangely shaped and had barbs on it, making it look very hideous. However, the owner of this battle armor turned out to be a handsome young man, but the strange thing was that one of his eyes was blood red, while the other had a strange blue color. Chu Xiu asked Lu Sanjin via voice transmission, "Who is this?" Lu Sanjin knew that Chu Xiu cultivated all year round and didn't know much about some of the Daoist powerhouses, so he also introduced in a low voice, "The Palace Master of the Blissful Demon Palace, Blissful Demon Venerable, Yan Beifeng, a powerhouse at the fourth heavenly layer martial immortal realm." However, this guy's brain isn't normal, so he's also called Yan Beifeng. He goes crazy at least 3 times a year. Although the majority of the people in the Blissful Demon Palace have abnormal brains, it's really rare to see someone as abnormal as him. Before Chu Xiu could speak, Lu Jianghu on the side curled his lips disdainfully and said, "A palace master is just a demon venerable." Chu Xiu glared at Lu Jianghu and told him to shut up. He found that ever since Lu Jianghu stepped into the heaven and earth profound understanding realm, he had become arrogant and always considered himself to be the Blood Sea Demon Venerable. Previously, he called himself the Blood Sea Demon Venerable, but he didn't have much confidence. Now, he was very confident. However, this Demon Venerable was different from the Demon Venerable that Lu Jianghu understood. Lu Sanjin pointed to the others and said, "The others are not easy to deal with either." The middle-aged man in a black robe with his arms behind his back is the Vice Palace Master of the Sky Demon Palace, Heaven-Covering Demon Hand, Yuan Kongcheng. He has just stepped into the martial immortal realm, so his strength should be between the second and third heavenly layer. The sloppy old man is the sect master of the Great Thousand Sect, Laws of Universe, Tao Qianming. He should be around the third heavenly layer martial immortal realm. There's also that dark-skinned man clad in armor. He's the temple master of War God Sect's War God Temple, Sikong Jialua. This man is somewhat similar to your subordinate Kocha. He's a mixed blood between a barbarian and a human, but that was several generations ago. He only has a small part of the barbarian's blood flowing in his veins. The most terrifying one was the seemingly indifferent, ordinary-looking young man with a long sword on his back. He was one of the three great sword venerables of the World Sword Sect, Sword Venerable Azure Dawn, Mu Bai Shuang. He was a seventh heaven martial immortal. Once the sword lunatics go all out, it's not difficult for them to surpass themselves by one heavenly layer. After listening to Lu Sanjin's introduction, Chu Xiu suddenly had a feeling that the eastern region was the weakest in the entire Daoist. The western region was ruled by Buddhism. Just the Sanskrit sect alone was enough to take on the entire eastern region. Moreover, there was the heavenly Luo temple, which was even stronger than the Sanskrit. The northern region was ruled by Taoism. Not to mention other Taoist sects, the Three Pristines Temple was the leader of Taoism. Just their strength alone could suppress two Buddhist sections. As for the southern region, it was actually the weakest when they first came to the Daoist. Most of the sects that were not that strong were gathered in the southern region. Moreover, among the Daoist people at that time, the southern region was the place with the most barbarians and fierce beast forests, so it was the most difficult to develop. Everyone looked down on it, so it was left to the second-rate sects. In the end, who would have thought that after 10,000 years, the sects of the southern region would not only gain a firm foothold in the southern region after 10,000 years of fighting, but also refine many top sections. The War Martial God sect, for example, could not compare with a top sect like High Heaven sect in ancient times. They did not even have a single martial immortal, but now they had become a top Daoist force. The entire southern territory was actually very chaotic. The major forces were constantly attacking each other, but once there was a conflict with other territories, they would still unite against the common enemy. In this regard, the southern territory was stronger than the eastern territory. Facing the opening of the blessed heavenly abode, the entire southern region had sent 5 martial immortals. If it weren't for Fang Yinglong, the #1 expert in the 8th layer of heaven, supporting the eastern region, they would truly be no match for them. Fang Yinglong snorted coldly and said, "If you want a piece of the pie, just say it. Don't talk so much nonsense. Yan Beifeng, if your southern territory wants to intervene in this matter, you should at least put in some effort to break the array, right?" Perhaps it was because Yan Beifeng stepped into the real pellet state very early, or he had cultivated some secret technique, so his current appearance was still young and handsome. Hearing Fang Yinglong's words, a bright smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, giving people a very sunny feeling. Break the array? However, I'd like to ask, which one of you here is the Imperial Sky Pavilion's Chu Xiu? Hearing Yan Beifeng ask about Chu Xiu, Fang Yinglong was taken aback. How did Chu Xiu get involved with the Southern Territory? He did not answer, but subconsciously looked at Chu Xiu. With this glance, Yan Beifeng had already guessed Chu Xiu's identity. He looked at Chu Xiu and said with a smile, "You are Chu Xiu?" Chu Xiu glanced at Ming Xuanyu, who was standing behind Yan Beifeng, and said indifferently, "Palace Master Yan, are you looking for revenge because of what happened last time? Is the demonic sect of the Southern Territory so narrow-minded?" Yan Beifeng glanced at Ming Xuanyu, who was standing behind him, and shook his head, saying, "Revenge for this guy? I'm not that bored. This is the karma and hatred that I sowed. If I can't even settle these myself, what use do I have for him?" Ming Xuanyu was a palace master of the blissful demon palace after all, and he was the strongest existence below the martial immortal realm in the blissful demon palace. However, Yan Beifeng did not give him any face at all. However, Yan Beifeng's tone changed, and he said, "But you are right about one thing. I am indeed not a very broad-minded person. Who said that the leader of a sect must have the bearing of an expert in order to be an expert? I am a very narrow-minded person. Whoever makes me unhappy, I will make them die a horrible death." At this point, Yan Beifeng's handsome face became a little twisted, and his demonic aura even caused the void around him to tremble. Staring at Chu Xiu, Yan Beifeng said coldly, "You should know who Qinqing Di is, right? You once asked him to deal with Ming Xuanyu. However, it was that guy who destroyed 3 of the blissful demon palace's branches in succession. This made me very embarrassed, and very unhappy. However, that guy is very cunning, and I can't find him. So, this time, I will vent my anger on you." As Yan Beifeng's voice fell, the rules of heaven and earth in the surroundings seemed to be affected, and began to tremble, but there was no change at all. However, in the next moment, countless giant white bone hands carved with demonic runes suddenly appeared under Chu Xiu's feet. The demonic runes suppressed Chu Xiu's power, and the giant white bone hands directly grabbed towards him. At this instant, Chu Xiu wanted to curse. This was simply an undeserved calamity. If Yan Beifeng had come to find trouble with him because of Ming Xuanyu, he could still understand. However, who would have thought that Yan Beifeng would actually come to find trouble with him because of Qinqing Di? When Qinqing Di left, he clearly said that he was going to take a stroll around the eastern region, but who would have thought that he would go to the southern region, and even destroy 3 of the blissful demon palace's branches? Chu Xiu dared to guarantee that those 3 branches must have offended Qinqing Di and angered him, which was why Qinqing Di attacked them out of anger. Chu Xiu understood Qinqing Di very well. Although he was domineering, he was not completely unreasonable. On the other hand, the blissful demon palace did not have a good reputation in the Daoist world. Right now, Chu Xiu did not have the time to complain about this undeserved calamity. He had just released his domain to block those giant white bone hands, but he saw a royal heavenly treasure seal suddenly fall, and directly smashed the giant white bone hands into pieces. Zhong Qiushui said coldly, "Yan Beifeng, you dare to touch someone from the Imperial Sky Pavilion in our territory. Are you seeking death?" Zhong Qiushui did not really like Chu Xiu, thinking that Chu Xiu was too scheming and scheming. However, Chu Xiu was now a member of the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Yan Beifeng dared to touch his people in front of him. This was simply a slap to the Imperial Sky Pavilion's face. Fang Yinglong also sneered and said, "Why? Is the southern region prepared to fight with the eastern region now?" On the southern region side, Tao Qianming of the Great Thousand Sect coughed and said with some dissatisfaction, "Yan Beifeng, why are you acting so crazy at this time?" Yuan Kongqing of the Sky Devil Palace and Sikong Jialua of the Battle Immortal sect also looked at Yan Beifeng with dissatisfaction. Right now, they had not even seen the item. Of course, it was not worth it to start a fight with the eastern region here for no reason. Yan Beifeng was only crazy, not stupid. Seeing that everyone was against him, no matter how crazy he was, he began to restrain himself. He did not look at Chu Xiu again, as if the previous incident had not happened at all. Zhong Qiushui looked at Chu Xiu helplessly and said, "I say, can you stop stirring up trouble? If you continue to provoke these powerhouses, the Imperial Sky Pavilion won't be able to support a great Buddha like you anymore. This isn't you, Chu Xiu, working as a revered elder for the Imperial Sky Pavilion. It's clear that the Imperial Sky Pavilion is working as a revered elder for you." Chu Xiu spread his hands and said innocently, "This really has nothing to do with me. It was clearly the other party who attacked first. Moreover, when we enter the Blessed Enclave later, there will definitely be a fight. At that time, we will still fall out with each other. The only difference is sooner or later. Zhong Qiushui knew that he could not win against Chu Xiu in an argument, so he did not continue to talk nonsense with Chu Xiu. Instead, he directly commanded the Imperial Sky Pavilion's warriors to participate in breaking the formation. There were also some people from the southern region. The eastern region and the southern region joined forces. In the end, it took them close to a day to finally break the blessed enclave in front of them. In an instant, the huge burial mound actually began to emit a terrifying blood-red light. This caused the experts present to look somewhat unpleasant. It seemed like this natural paradise wasn't that safe after all. Chapter 12-15. To most of the Daoist blessed grotto heavens and lands, it was a treasured land filled with spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In reality, this place was the same. As soon as the group entered, they immediately felt an incredibly dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth rushing toward them. However, this space was actually blood-colored. There was no sun in the sky, only a hazy blood-red color. Moreover, although the surrounding spiritual qi of heaven and earth was dense to the point that it had turned into mist, there was also a hint of blood-red in it. That power also faintly carried violent blood qi, making people feel slightly uncomfortable. The people present frowned. After exchanging glances, they spread out in all directions at the same time to search. Right now, they had yet to see the real benefits. It was not worth it to fight and kill at this time. Chu Xiu only brought Lu Jianghu with him. It was not because Lu Jianghu was powerful, but because he was the only one who had shown himself in front of Zhong Qiushui. Chu Xiu did not want to let even the Imperial Sky Pavilion see him. Lu Jianghu sniffled and said, "This is strange. There must have been people who died in this place. That's why this level of blood qi was condensed. It has even merged with the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. However, if there were many deaths, then this level of blood qi should have started to mutate long ago. It would be enough to turn a blessed grotto heavens and lands of heaven and earth into a land of extreme danger. However, it's just that the blood qi here is slightly denser. It hasn't developed in the direction of those evil places yet. Could it be that there were fewer people who died? Then how powerful must the expert be to be able to affect such a huge blessed grotto heavens after his death?" Chu Xiu glanced at him and said, "Are you sure you didn't sense wrongly?" Lu Jianghu snorted softly and said, "You can doubt my abilities, but you can't doubt my sensitivity toward the power of qi and blood. Right now, not only can I sense the amount of blood qi here, but I can also sense where the blood qi is the densest." As he spoke, Lu Jianghu pointed in a direction. However, it was shrouded in a thick blood mist, making it impossible to see the specific location. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. In any case, he wasn't here to look for treasures. He was only here to destroy this blessed enclave. He couldn't find a target for the time being, so he could only follow Lu Jianghu's instincts. Along the way, Chu Xiu was surprised to find that there were many mountains in this place, and their shapes gave Chu Xiu an extremely familiar feeling, but he couldn't tell what they looked like. By the time Chu Xiu and Lu Jianghu arrived, there were already dozens of martial artists fighting over it. Among them, there were several heaven and earth mysterious realm powerhouses, and the rest were almost all true fire spirit refinement realm. However, these people were all from the southern territory, and there was only one elder from High Heaven sect whom Chu Xiu had met during the High Heaven sect martial show, but he did not know his name. The thing they were fighting over was quite interesting. It was a fiery red stone pillar several tens of meters high. However, in Chu Xiu's eyes, the shape of this thing was a bit dirty and indescribable. Although that thing looked filthy, it contained an astonishing amount of pure yang energy. It was incomparably hot, so much so that even the surrounding heaven-earth yuan qi was purified by the baleful blood qi and turned into incomparably pure yang energy. This thing could be used for artifact forging or to construct spirit arrays with pure yang qi. It could be said to be twice the result with half the effort and could be regarded as a precious treasure. When the others saw Chu Xiu coming, they all showed a hint of vigilance in their eyes. If it was just their own people, they might still have thoughts of infighting. However, if it developed into a war between two domains, they would be in danger of fighting against outsiders and settling down internally. The Southern Territory and the Northern Territory were not completely cut off from each other, but the cultivators from the Southern Territory really didn't know who Chu Xiu was. After all, it hadn't been long since Chu Xiu became famous in the Eastern Territory, and the Daoist Empire was so large, so news spread a little slowly. "Xia Xikong, is this guy from your High Heaven sect?" A tall, burly man from War God sect asked. Xia Xikong of High Heaven sect coldly snorted and said, "That's the Royal Heaven Pavilion's Jianghu County's county governor, Chu Xiu, Gu Zun's successor." Although High Heaven sect generally didn't have a good impression of Chu Xiu, he was surrounded by a group of cultivators from the Southern Territory at this time. When Chu Xiu suddenly appeared, he actually felt relieved. Although the cultivators from the Southern Territory didn't know Chu Xiu, they had vaguely heard of Chu Xiu's name. Hearing this, the burly man from War God sect laughed strangely and said, "Oh, it's that Chu Xiu who defeated your High Heaven sect's Xianyuan Wushuang. That boy has a temper that needs to be taught a lesson, and now he's finally been taught a lesson?" Xianyuan Wushuang's reputation in the Daoist Empire was not small. Of course, part of this reputation was due to his strength, and part of it was due to his strange personality. Xia Xikong's face suddenly darkened when he heard this. The leader of their High Heaven sect's younger generation had been defeated. This was not something worth mentioning. But before Xia Xikong could speak, the burly man from War God sect said to Chu Xiu, "Boy from the Royal Heaven Pavilion, I advise you to be sensible. This blessed abode is so big, and there are many opportunities. If you retreat now, we won't bother to target you. There's a limit to how long the blessed abode can stay open. You won't even have the chance to enter once the Southern Territory occupies it." Chu Xiu had just sized up the thing. Although it contained extremely pure yang energy, it was not what he wanted. Tian Han had once given Chu Xiu a detailed description of the blessed enclave. The true core was definitely not the thing in front of him. Chu Xiu didn't come here to snatch treasures, so he originally planned to leave just like that. However, when he heard the words of the strong man from the Martial God sect, he immediately stopped and sneered, "What if I don't leave?" The burly man from the Battle God sect sneered as well. Just as he was about to speak up, a few powerful demonic auras appeared and shot towards Chu Xiu and the others. Ming Xuanyu of the Blissful Demon Palace, together with two Profound Illumination Realm cultivators, directly surrounded Chu Xiu and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, just now, you had Qiushui protecting you. Who else can help you now? Speak. Who the hell is Qinqing Di, and where is he?" Judging from the performance of Yan Beifeng and Ming Xuanyu, they were almost driven mad by Qinqing Di. In fact, this was indeed the case. With Qinqing Di's current combat power, he was almost invincible under the martial immortal realm. Unless Yan Beifeng personally appeared, no one could defeat him. However, the problem was that Qinqing Di wasn't an idiot. If Yan Beifeng appeared, he would be long gone. This was a thorny problem for the Blissful Demon Palace. Moreover, they had specially investigated Qinqing Di, but the results showed that he had simply popped out from a crack in a rock. They had no clue about him at all. The only clue they had was that they were helpers Chu Xiu had found. Thus, in this blessed enclave, everyone else was here to fight over the treasures in the blessed enclave. Only the Blissful Demon Palace was here to interrogate Qinqing Di for information. Seeing the people from the Blissful Demon Palace glaring at him, Chu Xiu felt a headache coming on. Although he knew that Emperor Qinqing Di wouldn't do anything to harm him by luring him into the exalted celestial plane, he knew that Emperor Qinqing Di wasn't someone to be trifled with. When he was in the lower realm, Qinqing Di's name spread far and wide. No idiot would dare to provoke him. However, after he arrived in the Daoist, given Qinqing Di's personality, if someone provoked him or if he didn't like the look of things, he would immediately throw a punch at them, no matter who they were. It was Chu Xiu who had brought Di to the Daoist to help him solve his predicament. Now that something had happened, Chu Xiu naturally had to bear the consequences. He didn't hold any grudges. Chu Xiu sighed as he looked at Ming Xuanyu. Just when Ming Xuanyu thought that Chu Xiu was going to say something, Chu Xiu gripped the formation-breaking saber in his hand. The saber radiance slashed at Ming Xuanyu with an earth-shattering momentum. Damn it! Ming Xuanyu didn't expect that Chu Xiu would attack him without saying a word. In a hurry, Ming Xuanyu's body was surrounded by black fog. A burst of ghostly wails and howls rang out. Countless evil ghosts emerged from the black fog and blocked Chu Xiu's saber. But the next moment, Chu Xiu's domain spread out and instantly strangled all the ghosts in the black fog. When Ming Xuanyu helped Xianxia to deal with Chu Xiu, he had fought with Chu Xiu and knew how terrifying Chu Xiu's strength was. But the problem was, how long had it been? Why did he feel that Chu Xiu's strength had skyrocketed again? What he didn't know was that it was because he and Xianxia had joined forces last time to threaten Chu Xiu's stronghold in the southern land that Chu Xiu had a sense of urgency, so he began to desperately cultivate. On the other side, Lu Jianghu and the other two Heaven and Earth Mysterious Realm martial artists had also begun a fierce battle. Although Lu Jianghu had just stepped into the Heaven and Earth Mysterious Realm, he was not at the early stage of the Heaven and Earth Mysterious Realm. The power accumulated by him when he was in the True Fire Spiritual Refinement Realm was too strong, so after the breakthrough, he directly skipped the early stage. Moreover, with the mysterious and strange blood demon power, it was not a problem for him to fight against two people alone. On the other side, Chu Xiu began to directly suppress Ming Xuanyu. He opened his god domain and trapped Ming Xuanyu in it. Chu Xiu's ethereal slash, break formula saber intent, 7 limits earth destroyer, these extremely powerful saber techniques slashed down one after another. Every slash seemed to have the power to shatter mountains and split the earth. In terms of pure power, Ming Xuanyu was already somewhat unable to withstand it. The evil demonic saber in his hand, which could devour any power, could not devour this extremely sharp power at this time. He was slashed back again and again. Even his face was flushed and his aura was unstable. The burly man from the martial fighting Immortal sect, who wanted to cause trouble for Chu Xiu, was now in a cold sweat. Ming Xuanyu was also a famous expert in the southern region. In any case, he was stronger than him. However, in front of Chu Xiu, he was suppressed to the point that he could not fight back. If it were him, he would probably be in a worse situation. Moreover, what made him even more afraid was Chu Xiu's attitude. Without saying anything, he attacked immediately. This kind of ruthless person was simply unreasonable. The degree of danger was beyond imagination. Chapter 12-16. Ming Xuanyu was very puzzled. How long had it been? How did Chu Xiu's strength increase so much? He was so strong that it was unreasonable. He had wanted to find Chu Xiu and force him to reveal Di's whereabouts so that he could claim credit in front of Yan Beifeng. However, he now realized to his dismay that he had been tricked. Ming Xuanyu glanced at the other cultivators of the southern territory and shouted angrily, "What are you all still looking at? As fellow cultivators of the southern territory, why aren't you attacking together?" The burly man from the war-battling divine sect and the other cultivators of the southern territory all sneered and subconsciously took a few steps back. They were indeed hostile towards Chu Xiu before, but now it was the blissful demon palace who was settling a personal grudge with Chu Xiu. What did that have to do with them? They would not interfere in this matter out of boredom. The extremely sharp saber radiance engulfed Ming Xuanyu's entire body. Ming Xuanyu finally could not hold on any longer. He shouted, "Retreat!" As soon as he said that, Ming Xuanyu's figure strangely turned into nothingness. It was not an illusion, nor was it a smokescreen. It was as if he had suddenly become a part of this space, causing all of Chu Xiu's saber radiance to miss. Chu Xiu formed a seal with his hand and unleashed the Great Compassion Mantra. Heaven's cry blood rain fell from the sky and a huge demonic hand grabbed at Ming Xuanyu, who had turned into a shadow of nothingness. However, it still missed and allowed Ming Xuanyu to escape. Chu Xiu let out a soft cry of surprise. Ming Xuanyu's move was truly beyond his imagination. Although the blissful demon palace was also a demonic cultivator, they did not follow the orthodox path of demonic cultivation. Instead, they were evil and strange. They were good at researching all kinds of strange things. Although most of their research was bound to fail, they had managed to research quite a few evil things over the years. None of them were weak. Right now, Chu Xiu could not see any flaws in Ming Xuanyu's move. Even the power of the Great Compassion Mantra could not imprison him. Chu Xiu's side had not succeeded, but Lu Jianghe had killed a heaven and earth profound illumination cultivator from the blissful demon palace. This surprised Chu Xiu. In fact, with Lu Jianghe's strength, it was not strange for him to kill a cultivator of the same level. Although he had always claimed that he was the fifth devil lord of the Kunlun demon sect, with his strength, if he had stepped into the heaven and earth mystic opening 500 years ago when the Kunlun demon sect was still around, he might have really become the fifth devil lord. But Lu Jianghe had been able to kill one of them even when he was fighting too. Chu Xiu had underestimated him. Seeing that Ming Xuanyu and the other cultivators from the blissful demon palace had escaped, Chu Xiu said coldly, "After them." Lu Jianghe looked at the thing hesitantly. "Although this thing looks a little weird, it is still a treasure. Are we not going to snatch it?" Chu Xiu shook his head. "Which one of us cultivates pure yang astral energy? There is not much use in snatching it. Let's not waste time on this kind of useless thing. Let's get rid of the people from the blissful demon palace first." Even without the incident with Chenqing Di, Ming Xuanyu had teamed up with Sanskrit's Xayan Jialua to attack his stronghold in the southern barbarian land. He had not forgotten this grudge. Now that Ming Xuanyu had fallen out with the blissful demon palace, if he did not kill him now, when would he? If it was anyone else, they might have said that they would definitely teach them a lesson next time. However, Chu Xiu was more used to sending them on their way this time. Seeing that Chu Xiu and Lu Jianghe were chasing after the people from the blissful demon palace, the cultivators from the southern territory heaved a sigh of relief. Chu Xiu had given them a lot of pressure. Now that he had given up on the fight, they had one less formidable opponent. Ming Xuanyu was frantically running for his life. He was not in a good state at the moment. He had overexerted the power of his essence soul. The secret technique he had used just now was to use the power of his essence soul to drag his body into the void. As long as the opponent's power could not tear through the void, they would not be able to hurt him. However, he was not a cultivator who mainly cultivated the power of his essence soul. In the short span of a few breaths, he had consumed a large amount of the power of his essence soul. Furthermore, he could feel that Chu Xiu was still chasing after him. This made Ming Xuanyu want to curse. He had already escaped, so why was the other party chasing after him instead of fighting for the treasure? After all, it was Chenqing Di who had turned the blissful demon palace upside down. It was the blissful demon palace who had a grudge against Chu Xiu and Chenqing Di. Why did it seem like Chu Xiu had a deep grudge against him? A faint bloodlust aura came from behind Ming Xuanyu. Chu Xiu and Lu Jianghe had actually used the blood escape secret technique at the same time. Their speed had greatly increased as they chased after him. Of course, they did not use their own qi and blood. Instead, they used the qi and blood of the blissful demon palace cultivator that Lu Jianghe had killed. Seeing that they were about to catch up, Ming Xuanyu's eyes flashed with a cold light. He was merely unwilling to fight Chu Xiu with his life on the line. Did Chu Xiu really think that he did not dare to fight him with his life on the line? Ming Xuanyu abruptly turned around. Boundless demonic aura swirled around him. The demonic fog spread out for several hundred feet. Countless evil ghosts howled and gathered together, transforming into a malevolent-looking demon god with a triangular head. Just as Chu Xiu was about to attack, a disdainful voice suddenly rang out. Trash! To deal with a martial artist with a lower realm than you even used the blood-devouring devil god. Have you been catching those barbarians in the southern barbaric land too easily all these years that you slacked off your cultivation? The dense mist of blood in the surroundings instantly dissipated. In its place was a sinister demonic aura. Yan Beifeng descended from the sky. In that instant, Ming Xuanyu, who had been scolded, heaved a sigh of relief. On the other hand, Chu Xiu frowned. An expert of the martial immortal realm had arrived. What Chu Xiu was thinking about now was not how to kill, but how to escape. However, although Chu Xiu looked grave on the surface, he was still very calm in his heart. Although martial immortals were powerful, they were not so powerful that he would be instantly killed. Chu Xiu had seen Zhong Qiushui attack many times. He was still able to withstand 1 or 2 blows. If Lu Sanjin's information was correct, Yan Beifeng and Zhong Qiushui were both in the 4th heaven of the martial immortal realm. Chu Xiu still had a chance. Especially when the opponent was a demonic cultivator. Chu Xiu had the Buddhist divine power, the cross-shaped lotus seal, which had a certain restraining effect on him. Yan Beifeng looked at Chu Xiu with a hint of interest in his eyes. Actually, compared to Qinqing Di, I'm more interested in you. You seem to be surrounded by some very strange people. The entire eastern region knows that you're the successor of Gu Zun. Although you didn't say it, no one was able to deduce which successor you are from your cultivation method. That's already very strange. Also, that fellow by your side, Lu Fengxian, actually defeated Xianyuan Wushuang. Although he's called the successor of Marquis Lu Wenho, the ancestor of my blissful demon palace had dealings with Marquis Lu Wenho. According to his knowledge, Marquis Lu Wenho shouldn't have any successor. Even if there was a successor who had entered the Daoist realm, it's very strange that he hasn't shown himself for 10,000 years. Of course, there's also that Qinqing Di. Although I wasn't able to catch him, I was able to see his martial path from the corpse of my blissful demon palace's disciple. His physical body is shockingly strong. Moreover, that kind of combat power is not something that can be cultivated through seclusion. It's definitely tempered through countless bloody battles. However, I've never heard of this person in the Daoist realm. Don't you think it's strange? So many strange things are related to you. Therefore, I'm very attracted to you, Chu Xiu. Yan Beifeng had a faint smile on his face. He looked at Chu Xiu as if he was looking at a very interesting toy. In fact, there were many loopholes in Chu Xiu. If Yan Beifeng, a person from the eastern region, could see them, naturally, other people could as well. However, no one looked into it because there was no need. Chu Xiu could bring benefits and strength to the Imperial Sky Pavilion. Why would the Imperial Sky Pavilion look into it? As an enemy of Chu Xiu, for example, Cold River City, Yi Weikong didn't care whether Chu Xiu was the successor of Gu Zun or not. If he was in the way of the Cold River City, he could just kill him directly. Therefore, Yan Beifeng, who didn't have much connection with Chu Xiu, specially studied Chu Xiu out of pure curiosity. He didn't expect to find so many suspicious points. Chu Xiu said indifferently, "The warriors of the southern region all call you Crazy Yan. A crazy person always sees a normal person as abnormal. You should be the strangest one here." Yan Beifeng didn't show any anger on his face. He still had that playful smile on his face as he said, "I'm a very curious person. I want to get a result on everything. Of course, the method of getting a result isn't important to me. Therefore, I didn't expect you to answer me at all. After I capture you, I'll use the soul-searching secret technique of the blissful demon palace to reveal the deepest secrets in your heart to me." Chu Xiu narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "I'm afraid that the deepest secrets in my heart will scare you to death. Is that so? I'm even more curious now." Following Yan Beifeng's words, the demonic aura behind him gradually changed. The cold demonic aura outlined a huge demonic palace. In every layer of demonic palace, there was a huge shadow. It was like a demon god, malevolent and eerie. Yan Beifeng's martial path was to construct tens of thousands of demonic palaces and nurture demon gods. As for the demon gods in the demon palace, their original forms were the warriors who had died in his hands. Seeing the aura that Yan Beifeng revealed, Chu Xiu instantly cursed Lu Sanjin in his heart. Lu Sanjin is unreliable. Fourth layer of martial immortal my *SS. Looking at the true aura that Yan Beifeng revealed, he was obviously stronger than Zhong Qiushui. He had already reached the fifth layer of martial immortal realm. Chu Xiu transmitted his voice to Lu Jianghe. Later, I'll use the cross-shaped lotus seal to block Yan Beifeng's attack. You escape first, I'll catch up later. Hearing this, Lu Jianghe instantly revealed a touched expression. That's great. I didn't waste my time working for you for such a long time. Even though Lu Jianghe said so, he was still retreating at an extremely fast speed. However, at this moment, another demonic aura that wasn't inferior to Yan Beifeng suddenly descended. The Vice Palace Lord of the Sky Demon Palace, Yuan Kongcheng, descended from mid-air and said calmly, Yan Beifeng, what are you doing here? You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.